What's up? What's happening on a Friday from District E? It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony Haney back in our DC studio. Happy Founders Day to you and all your brothers.
Thank you, good sir. Thank you.
Any particular ways you want to celebrate before we get into Ron Rivera swearing about his job? I mean, you played Atomic Dog, so that's important.
I did play Atomic Dog. I will not be on camera hopping, though.
Why not?
I have a bad hip right now.
You got bad...
I'm just going to throw one of those. The hooks real quick. You know, I know a lot of people that are watching the stream right now. They've seen these hooks. Michael Jordan's thrown them. Shaq has thrown them. A lot of famous Omega men have definitely thrown up the hook. So,
yeah.
Salute to all of my brothers. Happy Founders Day.
Indeed.
Yes, sir.
Indeed. All right. So, with that, you said we got something special in Real Things as well. That's the end of the show. This is the beginning. The beginning is Ron Rivera today was asked about his job. And it's funny that he was asked. I was reading the transcript. I was walking in here at Gallery Place, and it was already on my mind because we always start the show on Fridays by asking what's at stake. And I think for the first time all year, like, Ron Rivera's job is at stake. The loss last weekend was not great. And then you tack on the fact that the Giants are abysmal. They've already lost to him once. I don't think that Rivera would get fired going into the Thanksgiving game, but maybe just because it's such a short turnaround. Do you want to put EB's first game on him, 4 days rest? It seems unfair and less than ideal, but, if you lose to the Giants, keeping Rivera is obviously less than ideal as well. So it's just it's a tough situation, that can be solved very easily with winning, and then you don't have to worry about it until at least Thursday. If you get your doors blown off on national TV, then I do think that there's a chance. Obviously, you could get your doors blown off twice in a row because the Dolphins come to town after that. And then you got an extended bye week situation or another long week because you have the bye. And that's a time when a lot of those types of things happen. Then if you wanted to give an EB a trial, I still think the trial thing, I've talked about this a lot, it's not really true because an interim job is so different than a real job in that so much of what happens is in the off season. How you hire your staff, how you build your team, how you install things, how you schedule your off-season workouts. All those things happen in the off-season, and EB coming in and being able to do that or to be the head coach for 4 games or whatever at the end of the season is kind of a false representation of what he is or isn't as a head coach when he's truly got his own team. But if you lose embarrassingly twice, do you just go ahead and pull the plug and see what happens, see what changes he would make? It gives you a little bit different perspective. And at that point, I want EB focused on Sam and the offense, and he's got his hands full and then some there. But maybe you just go ahead and do it. And so all that was on my mind. All that was already theoretically in the rundown as I was ready to do this show. And then Ron was asked today about his future, and he gave a fairly long and in-depth answer.
Honestly, Nikki, I really don't. I understand the situation, the circumstances, but I'm not going to waver on anything. I'm going to stick to what I've talked about in the spring, and that was the growth and development of the quarterback and the offensive unit. I think with what we're doing and how we're doing things, it's kind of the progression of how. So all I can do is just focus in on each game, each week, and just stay on that game. I did the same thing in Carolina, and the truth is, this is the nature of the game. I get it. So if it happens, it happens. And so until then, I will just continue to work. I know what my goals are. I know what my vision is. But I'm not going to shake and waver on Sam or this offense or what we do. It's just, it's unfortunate right now that we haven't played as well as we needed to on defense to give ourselves a few more opportunities to win. The last couple of weeks, I think we've kind of played kind of complementary football, especially in the New England game. You know, there were some things that we had to do, and we bowed up and made some plays on defense and offense. We scored when we needed to. So those were good things. Last week, we didn't get the pressure on the quarterback I would like to have had. I mean, you know, Gino was struggling. It would have been good to be able to put some more pressure on that quarterback. It would have helped us. Probably would have given us an opportunity, even a better opportunity to win. But again, I'm going to, you know, work with what we have, deal with what we have, and just continue to stick to what I've said, you know, in this ring.
I mean, Ron's been around a long time, and he's like, do I think he's good at the job? No. I'm not going to sit here and change what I've said and what I've felt basically since he's got it. Like, again, my family grew up Carolina Panthers fans. Like, my mom and dad had season tickets to the Panthers from the time that I was in, like, high school through the pandemic, and then they finally gave up their seats. So I'm well acquainted with Ron Rivera's stylings. I'm well acquainted with Rivera in who he is as a football coach. And I didn't think he was going to come here and be awesome as a football coach. But what I said then is what I'll say now. Like, as a coach, to get you from A to B, the depth of the whole of morality that you had with Dan and Bruce exiting, or Bruce exiting at the time and Jay exiting, to what you have now with obviously Dan also leaving. Like, he can get you to here just fine. He's like there's only so deep the hole's going to go, but he's not the guy to get you from B to C, and C is championship. That's been true the whole time. But with that said, like, I appreciate his answer there, and it's correct, and it's one of the things that I actually think is a strength for Ron is kind of this somewhere between stubbornness or hard-headedness or focus. Like, you can phrase it different ways and give it different connotations. But at the end of the day, it all means the same thing. He's going to stick his head down and work. The quality of that work, that's a separate discussion in terms of the answer. But he is going to, as long as he is here, do what he thinks is best. He is going to show up. He is going to put in the work. He is not going to mail it in. He won't do that to himself. He won't do that to his players. He won't do that to his staff. I do think it's interesting. He was also asked later about, like, have you thought about making any staff changes? And he's like, no, I want us to do better. And I think there are times when that perhaps has been a mistake for him. He's a very loyal person, and I think at times that has really hurt him because you need to be able to be nimble. And unfortunately, the NFL, like many other businesses, but very particularly in the NFL, is a cruel and unforgiving business, and it's extraordinarily results-based. And I think also, though, realistically, some of the staff changes that people have asked for, I don't know that they've got the answers in-house to make things any better. So if they go out and lose to New York this weekend, there are going to be a lot of questions. The good news is there won't be a lot of time to answer them because they play again on Thanksgiving. But I also don't know that you want to be the team that's coming off a loss to Tommy DeVito and the New York Giants when the whole national audience is watching at 3:30 as you get I mean, look, if they can't do it against New York, what do you expect to happen against Dallas? So, end of the day, Ant, like, what's at stake this weekend? Like, in a lot of ways, I think what's at stake this weekend is Ron Rivera's ability to finish out this season or not. If he plays, or if they play well, they do what they're supposed to do, he's got nothing to worry about until probably at least Miami. And bye week, if you get pounced by Dallas and pounced by Miami, that could be a different story. But if they win this weekend and they're at least competitive in these games, like, I think Ron's going to be here for the rest of the season, and he probably will have earned that, and with the caveat and the context that he hasn't earned another season, and there is no, like, real reason to replace him now because his ultimate replacement is probably not someone in the building, or it's EB, and you want EB to be able to start fresh with all of the support around him that he's hired in place.
I agree with everything you said.
Yes, I did it.
But guess what, Craig?
What's
I'm
up?
confident in the Commanders, and maybe I have a different,
never
energy.
learn. You just never freaking learn.
I'm just saying, Craig, we've been in this position before in the division where we've had, a short week where we had to face two division foes in a 5-day span. And I look back at RG3's rookie season, 4-6 at this point in the season. I think back then though we were headed up against the Eagles before going into Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. But Craig, this is the same situation, a game where we can jumpstart whatever run we're about to go on. You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
Sure am.
But I think this is a good chance for us to get something going. We have a team that's been ravaged by injuries. We're going against an emergency quarterback in Tommy DeVito. I think this is a good opportunity for us to go out there and get the job done. Now, Dallas is definitely going to be a little bit tougher, but
a little bit
tougher, Craig. When we've gone up against the Eagles, and I think the Eagles are top 2 team in the NFC.
Yeah,
top 2 team. I think they're better than Dallas.
Yeah,
but I just feel as
they're
though
also a better matchup for Washington, style of play, etc.
Exactly.
Dallas is a big play feast team that will absolutely just shred you. And I mean, the thing is, like, what I actually appreciate about Ron in that answer is he's like, defensively, we haven't played good enough.
Nope.
And it's like, yeah, your defense is terrible. And I don't say that to be mean or to beat up on him, but like, you're a bottom 3 unit in the league in like the 3 biggest global metrics you can have: points per game, yards per game, defensive DVOA. Pick one. You want to be worst, second worst, or third worst? Because that's what they are. And so, like, if they're like, the irony of the RG3 Sam thing is, like, Sam is probably the most exciting quarterback they've had since rookie Robert. Yep. We all know how that ended. I feel pretty good about Sam not going sideways like that. However, like, that defense had your Fletcher's, Londons, and on down the list, and they were a playoff caliber team by the end of it. I don't see that for this unit. This defense has to play. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Del Rio turn is just late this year.
It's late.
And if they can be a top 5 unit for the final 7 games, sure. Anything is possible.
Sign me up, Craig.
And if that happens, then pull this clip in January when they're headed for the playoffs, and I will be psyched to think of how dumb I sounded right now.
And how smart and brilliant and confident I was in this unit.
But I'm not going to count on that.
I am.
Okay, well, we know how you and math and counting go, so good luck with that. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Specific to Sunday, though, before we get ahead of ourselves to Thursday and whatever repercussions happen from all the different results, how do the Commanders not do what they did last time they played the Giants? Lose in embarrassing fashion. How do they win the game? Our keys are next. Then Damon Amendolara joins us coming up at 4:30. DA, actually, when he was in local radio, his last local job before he was a big national star, was at 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston, where he covered Bill Belichick's Patriots. So with the story of Belichick to D.C. in the news this week, what a great time to catch up with DA about really some good insight into Belichick. So that's at 4:30. Keys to the game next, though. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app.
After
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And if you're watching, you see you got a nice fancy backdrop now, Anthony. Check that out. Huh? Here at District E. I think I want to bring this back into the main studio.
You might have to,
Like, hey, sorry, can we borrow this? Just saying. By the way, I know the Wizards have caught a lot of flack for the colors on the boundary stone stuff, and they're different. And, like, even to a point, I don't like that sometimes I tune into games and I just truly don't know who's playing based off the uniforms. It's my biggest old man yelling at cloud thing about me, at least in the sports realm. My hips and my knees cracking in the morning might be a bigger older man thing, but that's a different story. If this was their primary logo all the time, done. Sold. These colors are great. Yes? No? Anthony? You with me? Look at this logo.
I think the logo definitely looks weird.
Like
it's
the teal, it says Wizard.
It's the courts, though, that be
like
bothering me.
The red, white, and blue. I'm going to get in so much trouble. There's so many marketing people around me. Sorry, Wizards marketing people. But the red, white, and blue, that's what every team did. It's D.C. We're the nation's capital. I get that. The draw to those three very American colors in the capital of the U.S. However, what says Wizard? Like classic, like Disney movie wizard, let's say, or other non-Disney wizard. Red, white, and blue, or whatever version of teal and orange and other very technical colors on the palette this is. This does. Make this the permanent logo. That's all I'm saying.
I think you need to, after this break, stand on a table and shout that.
I think I probably should not stand on a table. I have no idea. I have no idea how much the table is good for us. Oh, teal and fuchsia. Thanks, Chris. Fuchsia. Can't be getting my fuchsia knowledge exposed. Lack of fuchsia. We should talk about football, Anthony. I think that's what should happen. So here's what we got. You got a Giants team who I've said this a couple times about a couple of teams that the Commanders have played this year, and then they've went and lost, but I cannot stress this enough. They're not good. And much like the Giants the first time around, they're not good, and they're hurt beyond the not good. But they're even more hurt beyond the not good. And frankly, actually, Anthony, they're more hurt and more not good than last time. Because last time they had Darren Waller, they had a healthy Saquon Barkley, they had Tyrod Taylor, who on any given day is an upgrade over Daniel Jones anyway. They don't have any of that. Waller's hurt, Barkley's banged up, and then you've got Tommy DeVito at quarterback. Then, on top of that, defensively, they've got a bunch of dudes who are banged up. I don't even know who's going to – actually, I need to check the game statuses to see who's in and who's out. So I'm going to try to look that up real quick. But you also don't even have Leonard Williams because you saw him twice this year already, once for the Giants the first time, second time Seattle. He got traded there. You saw him last week. So they are not as good and not as healthy. And if you lose this game, then, people are going to get fired. And they probably should. Because losing to this version of the Giants is losing to a borderline not NFL team. And that's all due respect to the Giants. Brian Dable's a heck of a coach. I really like Dable. And I do think that, you can't not show up, right? You have to be able to be alert for certain big play potential opportunities. Big plays is what's killed you. That's what's going to kill you this weekend. But the chances that they actually convert on even good opportunities feel like it's very low because of the talent deficiency that they've got in New York, which is some fault of roster construction, but is much more the fault of terrible injury luck.
Yeah, losing to this team, we quite simply can't do it. Tommy DeVito, I just looked up his QBR.
It's probably 14 or something.
11.8, Craig.
Dang, I overshot it.
11.8. So, yeah, losing to a guy like this, and then, as you already said, they don't have the weapons offensively because it's just so ravaged by injuries, to be honest. So I think the defense, John Allen, Daron Payne, them being able to, set the tone. Because, again, last time they played good enough to win the game. We just, quite frankly, didn't get the job done. So I would say the defense, let this be a game for them to get back on track. And then offensively, EBG got to keep doing what he's been doing the last couple of weeks, calling some, good plays for Sam to get the ball out of his hand and, just sustaining drives, to be honest.
That was an interesting thing that Ron said today in his Friday press conference. He said one of the things that they did better in the second half against Seattle was to get the ball out of Sam's hands a lot faster. And that does seem to be the bugaboo when this offense slows down this year is like this is why, like, part of the reason I advocate for the running game so much of like give me a 2 to 3% increase is it just makes that same kind of thing easier. Mm-hmm. But, okay, fine. If you don't want to run the football for whatever reason or you don't feel like you're going to be good at it, then just, like, let's call these quick screens. Let's call these quick slants. Let's call these hitches. Let's call these nice, easy throws for Sam that don't involve a lot of thinking, are extremely low risk for him and the O-line, and can be converted at a high rate to move your offense down the field. Because that's the thing, too, is, like, if you want to beat this Giants team pretty easily, like, you got to get out ahead of them early. And obviously, the nature of beating someone easily is you have to do that. But, like, their defense, if they believe, has got some players on it. Like, Banks is competitive. The kid out of Maryland, the rookie. Yep. Like, he'll compete his butt off.
But he's given up a lot of penalties, though, Craig.
He sure has. I would also say that is definitely a thing that you should do. By the same token, obviously Dexter Lawrence is great. Kayvon Thibodeau is dangerous. We've seen that. Like, not consistent, but dangerous. You get up on him a little bit, the fight's not quite as hard. Those blitzes that feel like they're coming a million miles an hour, they slow down a little bit. And obviously, on the other side, like, your pass rush can get after it because they're not going to run the ball like they want to. Like, they would rather give Saquon 40 carries. Maybe not this Sunday because Saquon's hurt. But, like, they'd rather run the ball 40 times if they can and then try to win it at the end versus Tommy DeVito having to drop back 35 times. You get Tommy DeVito to drop back 35 times, like, he's going to complete about 50% of his passes for about 4.2 yards of completion. He's going to throw 2 picks, and you're going to have 7 sacks. So how about that game plan? You've got to make sure you're aggressive early, which is music to EB's ears, and get out ahead quickly in this game so that the game flow then dictates you can probably dominate.
I think you said it perfectly, Craig.
Okay, which means I need to get the injuries to load. The good news.
Oh, did you see Antonio Gibson?
Yeah, Gibson. He got.
He's doubtful.
Yeah, doubtful. The toe is just not in good shape for him. Why is this being such a pain? All right, so.
Giants side.
Kayvon Thibodeau and Jalen Hyatt exited concussion protocol, eligible to play Sunday for the Commanders. So that's great for the Giants. Both those players have had pretty good games against Washington in their careers. However, on the other side of it, Evan Neal, who's been playing better, is out with an ankle. So there goes your right tackle. Adoree Jackson, concussion, out. He's now missed both Commanders games, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yep.
And then the only other player on the injury report is Andrew Thomas, who's questionable with a knee injury. He got rolled up on in that in that Cowboys game. Saquon, Ojulari, Okereke, Wan'Dale Robinson, all limited in practice, but they are going to play in the game. So that's the injury report. On the Washington side of it, yeah, unlikely to see Antonio Gibson, but everyone else is kind of what you think. James McWilliams out. Alex Arma, we'll see with that hamstring, if I'm remembering correctly, although he might actually have been ruled out. So I'll get you that coming up in what's trending after we talk to Damon Amendolara. Damon, of course, now with SiriusXM, but long time ago when he was just a local radio lad like ourselves, he was at 98.5 The Sports Hub in Boston, and he covered Bill Belichick. And so with Belichick's name floating around these parts, what's it like to actually cover the man up close, and what does he think about the potential to hire him at this stage of his life and career? DA joins us next for his Friday visit on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, and joined now by my good friend Damon Amendolara, Sirius XM, Mad Dog Radio. Each and every morning you get the DA show. Damon, missed you the last couple of weeks. Glad to have you back on the show. Thank you as always for your time.
My pleasure, Hoff. Good to be with you, man. What's going on?
I feel like my future could be like your past. I could, apparently, if the rumors are true, be talking about Bill Belichick as the coach of the football team that I cover. Now, for those that don't know, you're at SiriusXM now. Obviously, you were at CBS Sports Radio for a long time. But before that, you were at 98.5, the Sports Hub in New England during a nice chunk of the Patriots' winningest parts of their dynasty. So you have seen Belichick up close. What's it like? Like, what was it like back then to cover him up close before we get to where you think he is at this stage of his career?
His behavior has been consistent for his entire coaching career. He is obviously standoffish with the media, incredibly protective, secretive, difficult to crack through, unemotional. I mean, all of the stuff that you see, you hear, you read, his reputation is absolutely what he is day in, day out if you cover that team. And the one thing, the rare instance you can crack through is if you ask him a question about NFL history. That's a way to kind of get him to expound and open up. He does love that. But that's always been very consistent. I think today it's much different covering Bill than what I did, which was 09, 10, 11, 12, 13, which was, again, kind of in the chunk of that dynasty, although it was in between the two Super Bowl championship windows or championship bookends, was that back then it was impossible to truly criticize them. There was no ground to stand on. If they weren't winning Super Bowls, they were going to them. If they weren't going to Super Bowls, they were going to the AFC Championship game every year. And if you ever had some type of critique that, man, this draft pick busted out or this free agent was no good and a waste of money, you saw them in the AFC title game. And so what were you really supposed to say? So today it's much different because there's a lot of ground to criticize him on. The draft picks, the quarterback, the coaching staff, the free agents, the roster, game management. I mean, so that's what's truly different today is that you can pick apart all of that and sensibly and reasonably. When I covered him, you simply couldn't do it.
So I think the thing that's interesting that's happening now, because I agree with you, like now at this point, I mean, I went as far as to say yesterday, if I'm Washington, I'm not interested. I almost think that Belichick should be more interested in Washington than they should be at him. And if you want to, dispute that or comment on that, by all means. But I do feel like there's been a bit of revisionist history where everyone just now is like, well, because Belichick has not been good post Brady. It was actually only Brady the entire time. And go ask like Sean McVay what it was like to face the Belichick defense in the Super Bowl. And I think he would have a slightly different opinion. So I'm curious, like where you kind of come down on that as someone who was there in the midst of it, of the Belichick to Brady split. And if it's even possible to separate the credit into some kind of pie where there's two distinct pieces.
This is truly one of the great questions in sports history. I really believe that. And it's why I can't stop thinking about it and talking about it. And people might say you're beating a dead horse, DA, but I just find this to be absolutely fascinating for all of those reasons that you mentioned. And when you contextualize it in NFL history, we have seen great coaches fail at the end. And this is kind of what happens. We saw Tom Landry in the late 80s and the Cowboys become 3-13. We saw Chuck Noll and the Steelers by the early 90s become a perennial non-playoff team. We've seen Don Shula by the mid-90s become a 9-7 squad, and that was about the tier of it. This has happened many times over, and it's happening to Bill right now. There is an element here where indisputably he is not as sharp, he is not as revolutionary, innovative, tactically sound as he once was. Because it used to be he could take yours and beat his, and he can take his and beat yours. He was just better with the roster that whatever he was given. So going back to the original point, when you go back to the history of the Patriots' greatness, 2001, they beat the greatest show on turf, and it isn't because of Tom Brady. It is because of this brilliant defensive scheme that he cooks up to thwart the 99 and 01 Rams, which were that great. You know, when you go back to Super Bowl 25, that wasn't a great Giants offense. That was a lot of Otis Anderson. It was a great defensive game plan authored by Bill Belichick. And when you go through the chapters of the Patriots' history, they're inextricably connected, where the success of the Patriots is also in part due to Bill. Today, I think it's honest to say that he doesn't have that same touch anymore. And I think it is also honest to say that a great coach is oftentimes only as great as his players as well. And that includes an NFL where schematically, tactically, a coach has more influence. Because I mentioned those previous coaches. Well, Tom Landry in the 70s had Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson and Tony Dorsett and the Doomsday Defense. By the late 80s, he had none of that. Well, what's the connection? Where they won and where they lost. The Pittsburgh Steelers at one point had the greatest roster arguably in NFL history. By the early 90s, they did not. And what was the connection? Well, Chuck Noll was a winner and then stopped winning. So I think for Bill, you do have to say when he had great players, Tom and Ty Law and Vince Wilfork and Rob Gronkowski, and these are Hall of Famers, Rodney Harrison, they won Super Bowls. And now you'd be hard-pressed to find a Pro Bowler on that roster, let alone a Hall of Famer. And therein lies a connection as well. So there is truth in all of it. I would say at their peak, the Bill and Brady connection is a 50-50 split in terms of their success and why they won. I think today, why the Patriots are bad, it's probably 95% Bill. That's why they're bad. He built the whole thing, and he picked the players, and he's the head coach.
Right. Whether it's Coach Bill or GM Bill, it all comes back to Bill now. And of course, the last real Pro Bowler left on the roster is Matthew Slater, because when in doubt with Belichick, it always ends with special teams. Right. David Amendolara is with us, of course, DA, on Sirius XM Mad Dog Radio, 6 to 9 a.m. each and every weekday morning. Last thing on this, the other reason that I'm not really that interested in Belichick here is he is 71. He's not going to be here long term because he's not going to do anything long term. And he has the like saddest coaching tree that has ever made NFL. Why? Be successful, college or pro. I mean, Bill O'Brien is definitely the best of the bunch. His success at Penn State, however limited it was, and he had a couple good years in Houston. But beyond that, like, you barely have any winning seasons anywhere. And I'm curious why I'm sure you've thought about this and have talked about this before, but why is that the case? Why is it so unrepeatable, where you look at like the Shanahan coaching tree that's spread throughout the league now, or Andy Reid and some of his disciples, on back to Bill Walsh and on down the list? Why has Belichick not been able to produce a coaching tree?
His tree is disgraceful. It's not just bad or ineffective, it's disgraceful. And I think you make a good point that if you bring in Belichick for 3 seasons and you hope that it starts to build a culture, you would hope him to hand things off, the keys to the franchise, to somebody of his demeanor or what have you. And why would you ever want to do that? So I think it's been twofold. I think number one, Bill has been so incredibly secretive of his own success that even within that building, I don't think he really shares the true secrets. I think there was this shadow figure, Ernie Adams, for many, many years that was kind of Bill's right-hand man, lieutenant, perhaps ace of the dark arts. And I don't know if any of the assistant coaches truly got that type of genius or that type of insight, because whenever they went anywhere else, it wasn't like there was a quote-unquote schematic advantage. Even if they were jerks, it wasn't like any of those coaches seemed to provide a schematic advantage. So I'm not sure how much genius, quote-unquote, Bill was dispensing. And I have to imagine he's maybe so consumed and paranoid by his franchise being opposed by other contenders that he just never let anybody in too closely. I think the second part is Bill's a pretty miserable guy. I mean, sometimes he smiles and he's into NFL history, but he's really a very difficult, curmudgeonly, miserable guy, which attracts those types of guys. And look at the common theme: Matt Patricia, Bill O'Brien, Josh McDaniels, Eric Mangini, Joe Judge, Brian Flores. These are difficult people. It's not just that they lost. They've all been very difficult in the office. They're difficult in the press conferences. They're difficult in the locker room. When you see the Raiders throwing parties after Josh McDaniels left, it's not only a sense of, okay, maybe Josh didn't have the right schematics. It was that he was hated. He was actively despised by his locker room and by other people in the organization. I think that it's almost like, you attract the type of people that you are. And I just think Bill attracted those type of people. And when those guys didn't have Tom Brady and Vince Wilfork and Ty Law and Teddy Bruschi and Rob Gronkowski and Randy Moss, then guess what? Just the attitude, just the mentality, just the personality wasn't enough to carry a success. And that's why I do think it's fair to wonder how much is player success in New England versus coaching success. Because was Bill tactically better than most? It seemed that way. But all the times he was tactically better than most, when you go back and look at it, he did have great talent as well. Did he build the talent? Did he draft the talent? Did he develop? Perhaps. But when the talent was great was when Bill won. When the talent's not so great, he doesn't win. And when his assistants leave with no talent, they don't win. Which is why I think it's fair to start questioning the legacy of the tactical advantage or whatnot that the Patriots ever truly possessed.
Well, I mean, I think he is like the thing that makes him so special tactically is he made it so that he had defenses that could do anything. And he kind of didn't have to worry about offense because he had Brady. By the time, after obviously those first three Super Bowls are pretty defensive heavy. Brady's still emerging, yada, yada. I certainly don't need to tell you that. But he was able to do that. But I think the other thing, you talk about the personalities that maybe he realized, even if he never admitted out loud, or maybe it was even subconscious, is he did know that there needed to be a balance in terms of a locker room, in terms of having fun. Like you think of the classic Randy Moss Halloween party thing where it's like, oh, this guy does have a little bit of a personality. He just never lets us see it. But some of the guys you named, like Wilfork, that dude's a character. Gronk, ultimate character. He kept one or two of those guys seemingly strategically placed. And whether he did it on purpose or just they were stupid talented and he was like, whoa, I'll deal with their shenanigans, that had to keep the locker room from being what it was in Vegas, where McDaniels goes in there and is like, no fun ever. Everyone serious business all the time. And then you wind up hating your coach. And by the way, you're not as smart as Belichick tactically, and it all falls apart spectacularly because you need that. The season is too long. It's too much of a grind. And I wonder if Bill understood that consciously and just never talked about it, kind of lucked into it, but he definitely did have enough balance that it sustained for a long time. And oh, by the way, Brady obviously had a pretty big impact as a leader as well and could judge a lot of different things.
Yeah, all of that is right. And the Brady leadership component is really huge for two reasons. Number one, when in doubt, there was an alpha in critical situations, and you kind of trusted that whatever happened during the week, whatever Bill said, whatever scheme you were in, that when push came to shove, you had the secret weapon, which was Tom Brady gathering forces in the locker room, off the field, on the field, all of that stuff. You just had the ultimate winner there, and he was great at what he did. The second thing was that they won, and it's so much easier to get people to buy into a game plan or a culture that might not be fun, that might be difficult, that might not allow your personality to come through, or you might question some of the tactics as long as you're winning. I mean, how many times did we hear over the years that there were guys that didn't really love playing in New England, but they loved the winning, so they just stuck around, right, or they signed there late in their careers to get a ring, and all of the other guys entered situations that were really bad. I mean, if you had to fire a coach to go get a Patriots coach, more than likely you were trying to change your culture. And so whether it was Mangini or Judge or Patricia or McDaniels or name your failed Patriots assistant coach, they inherited bad locker rooms. And then, man, if it's miserable and you're losing, you start checking out of that type of coach and that coaching staff real quickly.
No doubt. Damon Mendelara, 6 to 9 a.m., SiriusXM Mad Dog Radio, with us frequently here on the Hoffman Show on Fridays. Of course, next Friday, I'm not doing a show, so we won't talk to you next Friday because it's a holiday. And I have the day off, which is delightful.
I'm happy that you're getting rest and relaxation, Huff. You're a hard worker, but I am working Black Friday morning. I've got a new audience. I've got a country that's driving around, going to their doorbuster deals. And so I got to talk about 3 pretty interesting games on Thanksgiving. All 3 of them have playoff implications. And then a Black Friday game, remember, we got Dolphins and Jets. So I'm on the air, baby, Black Friday. And I'm actually on the air Thanksgiving morning, too, if anybody wants to listen.
Oh, see, I think morning is probably ideal for that versus like by afternoon, I'd have a tryptophan-induced like coma audience and Thanksgiving afternoon. Well, I mean, Thanksgiving afternoon, I'd have no audience because everyone's going to be watching the game because obviously the Commanders are playing during our typical showtime. Mm-hmm. But then Friday, everyone's back home already. You get to get people fired up to punch each other in Best Buys.
That's right. Yeah. I'm where you go to get motivated to throw some elbows, sharpen some elbows for doorbusters.
Yes. So that's the DA show every morning, literally every morning, 6 to 9 a.m. on Sirius XM Mad Dog Radio. Thanks, buddy.
Okay, bud. See ya. Hey, this is DA, and you're listening to The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Fortier, how are you? And are you using the headphones that I sent you?
I am using the headphones that you sent me, so I'll not be pulled over. And I got to tell you, man, seeing the craziness coming out of Chicago today with the Justin Fields comment, with the DC abruptly resigning, it's just like giving me flashbacks to what this team used to be like. And I'm like, wow, I'm talking about football in a stadium? That feels odd.
Right. One, God, this call quality is just exceptional. So just, I got to say, I'm going to send you a clip later just so you can hear how clear you are. 2, we actually, so earlier in the show, we did a segment called This, That, and the Other Thing, and we wound up putting the Bears stuff in that. And yeah, it felt very oddly familiar, but also safely distant, which I think is good. All right, we got a lot to get to and not a lot of time. So first, let's...
James Smith-Williams just pulled up and honked at me. I'm on the radio with Craig Hoffman right now. Do you want to say something?
What's up, James?
How you doing, man?
What's up, James? Although you probably can't hear it because this is just in Sam's headphones.
Quick. Craig, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Feeling good. Just talking to Sam. Last time we did a hit with Sam, he put Matt Paris and Ben Standing on, so this is an upgrade.
Way better. Yeah, way better.
Yeah.
Definitely an upgrade.
All right, let's make sure nobody gets in trouble here. All right, James, drive home safely.
Thank you. You have a good one.
All right, goodbye. James Smith-Williams, everybody. I mean, that's been an ongoing bit.
Oh, okay.
I think Travis Kelce's got the best bit of all. He's just dating Taylor Swift. So, forget the lyrics. And then we got our guy Ian Eagle talking about Travis Kelce finding blank space in the end zone. Now, that's how you do it. By the way, I did follow up. For those of you that listened to the end of the show on Monday, we said we're going to have to investigate. Was that, did Noah Eagle feed Ian, his dad, the lyric? I texted Ian, and I was like, we might have to have you on the show to do this. And he's like, there's nothing to investigate. I'm just a Swiftie.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, well, there goes the segment idea, Ian.
Did you see Jason Kelce confirm the rumors, though?
Yes, he kind of did on WIP today, which is very silly. Jason, your podcast is very good and very successful. If you're going to confirm the biggest rumor in the celebrity world.
Exactly.
Don't do it on, do it on a radio show, obviously. Don't do it on a radio show. Do it on your own podcast, you moron.
Uh-huh.
I'm just kidding, Jason. You're definitely not a moron. Jason Kelce, not a moron. It was just not the, why am I doing, let's keep going with the comments.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. We'll be live on Sunday right here on YouTube and the Team 980 for the Take Command pregame show starting at 10 a.m. And don't forget, Take Command postgame show. We will do the instant reaction show after the game live from FedEx Field. That'll be about 5:30. Logan and I will go live from FedEx after the game. Hopefully, Anthony, that will be the first win at FedEx Field that your boy has seen in person since sometime in 2019.
Oh, yeah, because you didn't go to a lot
I didn't go to a game
Yep.
for a while, but I haven't seen – I missed the Arizona game because I got sick. And so that's the only home game they've won this year. I've been to the rest of them. Let me pull up the schedule real quick from 2019. Washington football 2019 schedule.
Are you superstitious at all?
Not really.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure, your presence and attendance at the games, whether or not it's
I wish I had that much control. The last home game they won that I was there for, oh, God, that game was awful.
Good gracious.
It will have been almost 4 years to the day.
Wow.
Because it'll be the 19th. On November 24th, 2019, they beat the Detroit Lions in a horrendous game, 1916.
Is this Thanksgiving?
It was Thanksgiving week. And then the week after, you know what they did?
We got destroyed.
Incorrect. They went to Carolina and beat Ron Rivera and the Carolina Panthers in what turned out to be Ron Rivera's last game with the Carolina Panthers.
Oh, because was that December 1st?
It was like December 3rd, I think I just read. I still have it up. I don't know why I hesitated instead of just clicking back over. No, it was December 1st.
Yep, that makes sense.
And then
Literally.
Dan said, Happy Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And everything got super weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's the last time your boy saw a win at FedEx Field. Now, I didn't go from 2020 until the Buffalo game this year. But still, it's been a long time. I'm tired of looking up at the scoreboard after the game and being like, oh, another loss, Logan. Let's talk about it.
Another one.
We can avoid that. I think, by the way, real quickly to react to what we talked about with Damon, I don't think that Commanders fans have to worry about Belichick. And I know that sounds crazy because folks have obviously reported it who know stuff. Like Albert Breer's no dummy, and not like he makes stuff up and doesn't have sources. But it's just so antithetical to everything that Josh Harris stands for, the way he wants to build a culture, the way he wants to build sustainability, the way that he thinks about like building sports teams and being on the cutting edge and innovative. I just don't think it's going to happen. So that's feelings and vibes as opposed to information, which is a silly thing to do. But I'm telling you that, and I think it's sound logic. And the more I talk about it, the less I think that it's likely to be remotely considered. Maybe he gets considered as some kind of like team president or something, or he's a special advisor. I could see a lot of different things. But as the actual coach and someone who has real decision-making power day to day, I tend to think that it's not going to be Belichick. and probably anyone off that tree because it seems to be dead at the roots. All right, that is our first hour. Coming up in our second hour here live from District E, the block party is going to kick off here at 5:30. We will let you hear from Logan, speaking of, in Take Command at 5:15. Our pal Chris Knoche is going to hop on the horn next with us, preview Maryland and Villanova tonight. Also, what the hell happened to Maryland last weekend? Good gracious. The Turtles, yikes, bro. And then, let's see, our picks at 5:30, 6 o'clock our pick 6. Dave Johnson joins us at 6:15. We are loaded up on a Football Friday presented by your local Honda dealer here on the Team 980.
Fortier, how are you, and are you using the headphones that I sent you?
I am using the headphones that you sent me, so I'll not be pulled over. And I got to tell you, man, seeing the craziness coming out of Chicago today with the Justin Fields comment, with the DC abruptly resigning, it's just like giving me flashbacks to what this team used to be like. And I'm like, wow, I'm talking about football in a stadium? That feels odd.
Right. One, God, this call quality is just exceptional. So just, I got to say, I'm going to send you a clip later just so you can hear how clear you are. Two, we actually, so earlier in the show, we did a segment called This, That, and the Other Thing, and we wound up putting the Bears stuff in that. And yeah, it felt very oddly familiar, but also safely distant, which I think is good. All right, we got a lot to get to and not a lot of time. So first, let's...
Yes. James Smith-Williams just pulled up and honked at me. I'm on the radio with Craig Hoffman right now. Do you want to say something?
What's up, James?
How you doing, man?
What's up, James? Although you probably can't hear it because this is just in Sam's headphones.
Quick. Craig, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Feeling good. Just talking to Sam. Last time we did a hit with Sam, he put Matt Paris and Ben Standing on, so this is an upgrade.
Way better. Yeah, way better.
Yeah.
Definitely an upgrade.
All right, let's make sure nobody gets in trouble here. All right, James, drive home safely.
Thank you. You have a good one.
All right, goodbye. James Smith-Williams, everybody. I mean, that's been an ongoing bit.
Oh, okay.
I think Travis Kelce's got the best bit of all. He's just dating Taylor Swift. So, forget the lyrics. and then we got our guy Ian Eagle talking about Travis Kelce finding blank space in the end zone. Now, that's how you do it. By the way, I did follow up. For those of you that listened to the end of the show on Monday, we said we're going to have to investigate. Was that, did Noah Eagle feed Ian, his dad, the lyric? I texted Ian, I was like, we might have to have you on the show to do this. And he's like, there's nothing to investigate. I'm just a Swiftie.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, well, there goes the segment idea, Ian.
Did you see Jason Kelce confirm the rumors, though?
Yes, he kind of did on WIP today, which is very silly. Jason, your podcast is very good and very successful. If you're going to confirm the biggest rumor in the celebrity world.
Exactly.
Don't do it do it on a radio show, obviously. Don't do it on a radio show. Do it on your own podcast, you moron.
Uh-huh.
I'm just kidding, Jason. You're definitely not a moron. Jason Kelce, not a moron. It was just not why am I doing... Let's keep going with the comments.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
What's up? What's happening? Hour number 2 of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app and streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. Folks starting to rowdy up here at District E. We are live at Capital One Arena at Gallery Place, or I should say just outside Capital One Arena at Gallery Place. The block party starts at 5:30. You can come and hang out, listen to a little bit of the show. They got some performances going tonight. There's this whole alcohol section next to me. There's Patron. There's Uncle Nearest. There's a couple of other beverages whose signs I can't see, so I apologize for not giving them free advertising on the radio, which I'm probably not supposed to do anyway. Okay, it's time at 5 o'clock for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in, Not My Beat.
All right, well, we have obviously our eyes right over there on Capital One Arena where the Wizards are going to take on the Knicks tonight. We actually don't have that game here on the Team 980. If you're looking for Wizards basketball tonight, it'll be on Bloomberg 99.1 because we have the Terps. Maryland and Villanova. We go to Philly where Chris Knoche joins us. And Chris, I hope you've eaten well. You know that Rachel, my wife, is from Philly. It's such a great food city. I must ask, did you have a quality lunch? Like, what did you have? Where did you go?
You know what, Craig? It took me. It didn't. I was a little slow on the uptake. So.
Oh, Knoche.
This is the worst travel day of the year. I found out shortly after I left Alexandria. I mean, it took me 4 hours to get up here. And so, yeah, it just completely blew my plans, my itinerary. Right now, I'm on the campus at LaSalle University visiting with some friends who coach here, but it ends up being a lot more of a brief trip than I had planned. I agree with you. It's a great town. It was just a nightmare traffic day.
Oh, I hate that for you, man. That sucks.
Yeah.
Are you doing the quick turnaround? Are you coming back tonight, or can you at least try to dive in tomorrow?
Yeah, no, I'm coming back tonight. I got a bunch of things going on tomorrow. There's Maryland football, but not that I really have anything to do with that. I'm not smart enough to do football games, but my daughter's at VCU now. She's on staff down there. They play tomorrow. There's a lot going on. I got to get back for. So.
That's a bummer. All right, well, field trip to Philly at some point to rectify that situation. We can't be going to Philadelphia and not having a meal. You do get to watch some basketball, and hopefully it's a palate cleanser. See what we did there. After last weekend, like, what happened, man? They had Davidson, and then they had the other game on the weekend where they have the big comeback. It was funny because we were watching, or we weren't watching that game, Chris, but we kept seeing the score go by because it was happening while we were doing the pregame show, Take Command pregame at MGM, and they have like the score ticker if you've ever been to Tap Sports Bar. Yep. And every time the score went by, Maryland was getting a little bit closer. In the end, they run out of time. Certainly not the weekend that Maryland imagined.
No, it wasn't. It was really disappointing. And there's a real way to sugarcoat it. The only way you sort of rebound from that is to get better and win a game like this tonight. It's a sport that offers you ample opportunities. And, as disappointing as last weekend was, and the second game was against UAB, by the way, UAB and Davidson, those are two games you shouldn't lose. And yet they did. And you get a chance to play a Villanova team that was ranked until they won't be ranked now because they had their own upset loss.
Right.
To Penn. So, right now, these are two teams that have sort of been struggling to put points on the board. It's almost feels like first team to 60 might win this game. Oof. And just hope it's the good guys, and it should be quite a battle.
Our, of course, DMV basketball insider, one Anthony Haney, tells me that UPenn team, led by a DMV kid, Tyler Perkins, in that game.
About that, I did not know that. And where is young Tyler from? Penn is a little bit off my radar right now since they're not on our schedule.
We finally found the end of Chris Knoche's college basketball radar. Who knew it existed?
Tyler Perkins, he went to Landon in Bethesda, Maryland.
There you go.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
I tell you what, that league is putting out a lot of good players. Bullis is very good. Georgetown Prep is very good. So it doesn't surprise me. All of a sudden, that league is legit.
Chris Knoche is with us here on the Hoffman Show. Of course, Coach on the call tonight up in Philly for Maryland and Villanova. And as you mentioned, both teams struggling to put the ball in the basket. Maryland trying their damnedest to do it 3 points at a time and failing fairly miserably, shooting just 22.6% from three on the year. Is that bad looks? Is it missing good ones? What's going on with Maryland from three?
Well, part of it is it's a little bit of all those things, and part of it is having the wrong guy shoot them as well. You know, you want to get the ball in your best shooter's hands as much as possible. But this is something we're kind of seeing across the board in college hoops. We just talked about Villanova and Penn. Villanova goes 9 for 33 in that game against Penn. In a game earlier this year that got a lot of hype, you probably mentioned it on your show, James Madison wins at Michigan State. And in that game, Michigan State shot 1 for 20. So, it's a game that right now the sport has evolved to a point where, for better or for worse, Craig, there's a lot of three-point shooting. And if you're not shooting it at least moderately well, above 30% or so, you're going to struggle. It's just it might make for a long night. Maryland was 5 for 25 one game down in Asheville and 5 for 26 in the other. And you're not going to have, unless you are absolute tigers defensively, you're not going to have a lot of success.
Akeem Hart, a name that a lot of folks remember from his days at Maryland, now with Villanova. How scared are you of a revenge game situation for him?
Well, he's playing sixth man for them right now. He's getting 17 or 18 minutes a game. I worry more about Maryland and what they're doing than Hakeem. He's a good player. He's played a lot of minutes. He's a very good college basketball player, and they've got a few of them on that team. But I just worry more about Maryland's psyche, about the way they're playing, the way they're feeling about themselves, than I do the opponent. I think you got to take care of business, in your own locker room and in your own, on your own team bus, as it were.
And with that said, do we know who Maryland's fifth starter will be tonight? We've seen four consistent and Jordan Geronimo in one game, Noah Batchelor in the other. Who do we think that Willard pops out there tonight?
I do think that eventually the way things settle out, I think they'll end up starting both freshmen. And I don't know if that'll be tonight, but I expect that at some point in time, that's what we're going to find by the end of the year. Jamie Kaiser, along with Deshaun Harris-Smith, they've been spotty to this point in time. But the only way you get these guys really Big Ten ready and ready to take the next step is with, liberal amounts of playing time. And sometimes it's not going to be pretty, but I think those are the two likely candidates to fill those fourth and fifth spots.
Chris Knoche will be on the call tonight. Pregame starts at 7:30. Tip-off at 8 from Villanova here on the Team 980. Coach, have a great weekend. Enjoy the busy weekend. Good luck to your daughter in her game tomorrow, and have a great Thanksgiving as well.
Appreciate it, Craig. You too. Thank you.
All right, Chris Knoche with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, Logan Paulson's take on how the Commanders' offense can dominate a Giants defense that wrecked their souls the first time they met. Take command on a Friday next here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony and I go around the NFL coming up at 5:30. Analysis and a pick for each and every game. And a weekend, by the way, that's loaded with divisional matchups. Plus, it all concludes Monday night with the Kelsey family reunion game, a.k.a. the Super Bowl rematch. So that is coming up at 5:30, and then our pick six at 6. Real quick, though, before we continue live here from District E, we are broadcasting live at Gallery Place with the block party about to kick off at 5:30 as well, ahead of Wizards and Knicks tonight. A little take command for you on this Friday. Logan Paulson and I breaking down how the Commanders' offense can do much, much better, because they can't do much worse, than they did last time and ultimately get a win against the New York Giants.
Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. Craig Hoffman here, Logan Paulson there. So we just talked about all this fancy data and information, Logan. How does it actually apply to the Commanders and their offense against a Giants defense where if you want to look at a bad EPA per play, if you want to look at some bad data of all kinds, go back and look at the first craptastic game that these two teams played where the Commanders scored just 7 points. How do they attack this team differently this time? Obviously, we know they've got some changes on the offensive line. The Giants also don't have Leonard Williams. You saw him last week with Seattle, so that's helpful. Yeah. But I mean, Dallas just absolutely destroyed this Giants defense. What can the Commanders take of don'ts from their first matchup and do's from some of these other teams that have been able to put up a ton of points on New York and have a much better offensive performance on Sunday?
Yeah, I think this will be really interesting because when you look at that Dallas game, I think there's this, oh my gosh, they blew the doors off Dallas or Dallas blew the doors off the Giants. But through the first quarter and quarter and a half, almost to the second quarter to halftime, it was like 7-0 for a long time. And so the Giants defense gets a 4-and-out. They get a turnover. It should have been 7-7, but Tommy DeVito is like not good at quarterback. So yeah. They got a turnover return to the 15-yard line of Dallas going into score, and they couldn't get any points out of it. So I think there's this perception that obviously New York is struggling. I think that's 100% right. But when you look at the start of these games, the defense has kept them in it. And when you look at our game, the defense for sure kept them in it, right? Turnovers, lots of sacks, lots of pressures. And so that's still the defense there. And I think you bring up a great point. They're not quite as dynamic in the front without Leonard Williams there. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence had 15 pressures against the New York Jets, so he's still there. You see him just making centers' lives miserable. So he's a guy you definitely got to account for. And then you got to account for Wink Martindale's scheme. And he does a good job. He puts his guys in high leverage spots all the time, but they are number one in the NFL in free runners to the quarterback. And Sam in the first game had a really hard time with that. You know, he turned a lot of those into sacks. I think we got a new Sam Howell now, but I think this is a really good measuring stick. Like this is kind of was his kryptonite, a team that's going to pressure a lot, kind of give you confusing looks, and that's tough for a young player. So What I would say is let's make sure the protection's locked in. Let's make sure that's why Tyler Larson's playing center. Can he get this stuff ID'd? Can we get the known rushers blocked? All those types of things. That's going to be huge. Sam, know your protection rules. Know when you're hot. Know where the ball needs to go. He did a great job of that against Seattle. Seattle brought a little bit of like 4 and 5 man pressure, simulated pressures with 4, and I thought he did a great job. So this is going to be like the varsity level of that in terms of extreme pressure looks. But I think he's progressed and grown in a nice way that he'll be able to handle it. So when you look at teams that have done a good job against them, like I look at what Las Vegas did, I look at what Dallas did, and Dallas was like, we're going to spread you out. We're going to identify one-on-ones, and we're going to win with quick slants because our guys can beat press coverage, and we're going to eat. Also, I think it's important to note that game flow for this defense seems to be playing a factor. They know they're getting nothing from the offense, and so they'll be competitive for a quarter. But if you can start scoring some points, there is this kind of like, oh my gosh, here we go again. There's no way we can win this game because we as a defense can't score 14 points, right? So there's a little bit of that going on when you watch them. So I think they're still a good competitive group, if that makes sense. I don't want to give them too much credit, but
I would say this, like, it's pretty easy for almost any team in the NFL to compete for a quarter, right? Even like teams that in blowouts, like you look at the third quarter sometimes and it's 0-0 or it's 3-3 and it's like, but the final score was 48-7. So, it's about at the NFL level being able to compete for 4 quarters, and the Giants just should not be able to compete with the Commanders for 4 quarters based 100%. Off the current state of the Giants. So the Commanders better uphold their part of the bargain. And so, I guess early on in the game, it probably emotionally is easier to do that, but you got to keep going. You got to put the pedal to the metal. And the Commanders have at times done a good job of scoring early this year. I think that's something that could be hugely beneficial if they could get an opening drive or 2 touchdowns and get up like they did on Atlanta, like they did, frankly, to start Seattle. Can you make those plays early? Because unlike those other teams that made it interesting late, the Giants are very unlikely to make it interesting.
And so I guess what I'm basically saying there is like, don't let them stick around. Like, don't let them do it, right? Don't give their defense hope. Because offensively, they don't have a lot going on. Don't give their defense hope because, like, if you look at the last game, we scored 7 points, right? The Commanders. And so that game flow is exactly what they want. They want to play field. Like, if they're going to beat us, and I was thinking about this, like, what has to happen for the New York Giants to beat the Washington Commanders, just based on the talent of the roster? One is they win the field position game, right? So they get you backed up. You're punting. They're in plus field position, and they just keep you backed up. You never get anything going offensively. That's what happened in the first game, and they ended up winning, right? So turnovers is another thing that allows them to stay in it, right? And this defense, they're not great. I think they're like 17th in the league in terms of takeaways or turnovers, but they do find explosive defensive plays. They get a lot of sacks. They get fumbles. They get interceptions. So don't let that happen. And if you can do that, I think the Commanders' offense is talented enough to put up 28, and if they do that, then the defense is going to quit. But if you give them hope, and it's like we're in this negative field position situation, we can't get past our own 25, we're punting a bunch, they're going to get hope and they're going to get juiced. Because if you watch the Jets game, that's essentially the game flow of the Jets game. Now, Zach Wilson is a much different player than Sam Howell, but it was 10-10, and they were up late. It was like it was 7-10 going into the overtime period. The Jets come back and kick a field goal or whatever
to tie and send it overtime. But it was like right before that final drive.
It was gross, and like the defense was playing with their hair on fire. And the defense is the only thing in this game, in my opinion, after watching a lot of film of them, that keeps them in it. So offensively, what are our protection rules? Let's be consistent offensively. Let's be efficient offensively, and let's score points. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Just quite literally, do your job. You should be able to. This is a little bit of a, they present an interesting dilemma from a pressure standpoint, and we saw what that can do in the first matchup. But you've seen it once. You've gotten better at handling this stuff. Let's make sure that we execute the way we know we can execute and win this football game. And you can win it with the offensive side of the football. Because if you're efficient, don't turn the football over, score a couple points, score 21 points, the game's over.
Right. I think this is a huge game for the receivers to bounce back. You watch what like CeeDee Lamb did, and I'm specifically like I'm not calling out Terry McLaurin because we don't do that. That's a silly thing that radio people do, or calling out, like, that matters.
Yeah.
But, like, I will call attention to Terry McLaurin. You watch what CeeDee Lamb does in the Dallas game, and he just absolutely wrecks the souls of the Giants defense. And, of course, like, Dak's on a heater right now.
Yeah.
They've got some other guys that make that a little bit easier because they've got good threats. But, like, Terry's got help as well. And Sam Howell's playing his best ball of his career so far the last 3 weeks. And I think Terry's got it. And by the way, Terry's probably a little ticked at how the Banks matchup went last time because the kid is pretty mouthy, the rookie out of Maryland. So, like, go out and wreck him. Like, go out and absolutely show that you are one of the best receivers in the NFL. And I think that it's on EB to give him those opportunities. Obviously, it's on Sam to give him those opportunities, on the O-line to protect, to get those opportunities. But we were talking earlier about some of the quick game stuff and, you know, making sure that the right guys get involved as soon as possible. Like, I think, and Sam talked about that this week at the podium. He's like, we have to get our guys involved early. I would make sure that you have some of that quick game stuff called for Terry early. I would try to get like Jahan or Curtis, like a carry early. Curtis, obviously the carry options are unlimited because you can put him at running back if you want to. You can have him go an end around. But like you see the reverse that Dallas throws to CeeDee Lamb and he scores on it. There's not just benefit in terms of those guys feeling involved and getting involved and finding the rhythm of the game. But I think when you talk about slowing down a pass rush like the Giants, obviously the number one thing you can do is get it blocked up, right? The number one thing that you can do is make sure that you're actually solid in your protection rules and execute. There's no strategy that is, you know, execution proof, as we've become fond of saying on this show. But can you use every blade of grass side to side, make them cover a lot more space, keep that pass rush off balance, and punish some of their – and this was the thing that I think was really frustrating last time. They never were able to punish the Giants' aggression.
Right.
Like, okay, you want to be this super aggressive team. How do we weaponize that against you? And from the screen game to misdirection type of stuff to whatever, I do think EB obviously –
no lies were told. The rest of the week on the Hoffman Show. Here I am. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well in the free Odyssey app. That little bit of Take Command, just a taste, a tease, a preview. If you would like the defensive side of the ball for Washington, plus an extended conversation on something that we were doing earlier this week on this show about how to really maximize and optimize the Commanders' offense, make sure you check out the Take Command podcast. And then Logan and I'll see you again on Sunday for that. Meanwhile, here on this Football Friday, driven by your local Honda dealer, experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. Anthony and I will go around the NFL next here on the Team 980. What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show. Second half here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And right as we come out of break, the doors open. Folks are coming in. They are headed over to the drink stations here and everything else for the block party at District E Capital One Arena. There's an odd amount of Knicks fans here. It's fine. We won't throw them out. Yeah. Oh, you're with her. You're gonna claim him though? No. Okay. Sorry, sir. You got a nice little Knicks sweatshirt there, but you're going home alone. So that's so unfortunate for you. You could have had a better choice of basketball team. Not had about 50 years of misery, and also not be going home alone. But not like the Wizards are any better. Anyway, all right, we're gonna go around the NFL now here on the Team 980. Make our picks for the week. Anthony Haney is back in our DC studios, which is always fun, Anthony, because while the folks watching on YouTube can see you and everyone listening on the radio will be able to hear you just as normal, you're just going to be a disembodied voice to the people here at District D.
Thanks for reminding me, Craig.
You're welcome.
Thank you, man.
You're welcome. Someone's got to hit those very fancy buttons back there. And you know what? No better man than you.
Yes, sir. Let's get to it then, man.
All right. You hit the music. That means it's time to start. So let's get into it, shall we? Bengals and Ravens last night. We both got this one right in terms of the picks, with the Bengals losing, unfortunately, a lot more than just this game. Joe Burrow out for the season. That injury that he left with in his wrist is a torn ligament that is going to end what has been a cursed 2023 season for Burrow. Of course, he missed basically all of training camp with a calf injury. He didn't play very well when he came back. And now, Anthony, I'd say we preemptively look pretty good taking them out of the prime contenders category in our tier rankings yesterday. Oh, my God, the Bengals are screwed.
They are screwed, but, Craig, when I tell you they might fall and fall faster than any team that we have on our list, they might be down at no chance because the defense didn't necessarily play all that well. And then I also don't have the most faith in Jake Browning. But Jake was going against one of the best defenses in the NFL. So who knows, a couple of weeks of practice, he may be able to, turn something around. Like they'll probably be interesting, but just quite not good enough.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, that'll be interesting to watch. Can their defense continue to play a little bit better? It's hard to judge anything against the Ravens, but Burrow out for the season. As for this weekend's games, Bears and Lions get us started with our picks. Bears 3-7 on the year. Lions 7-2. Detroit 7.5-point favorites at home. Give me Detroit here. But it's divisional game. Just you never know what kind of wacky bits could come.
Exactly, Craig. And the Bears, they're getting Justin Fields back. Who am I fooling? I'm going with the Lions, man. Going with the Lions.
Yeah,
they're rolling, man. They're rolling.
Fields is better than people think he is, but he's not as good as the Bears need him to be.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at PFF grades today for just like quarterbacks throughout the whole league for the whole season. Can you believe that Sam Howell is actually graded lower this year than Justin Fields? It's true. Like that wasn't a quiz. Like it's true.
Wow.
Now, granted, the PFF is big in penalizing sacks and big in penalizing interceptions.
Ooh, that'll do it.
And so if you took out the Buffalo game, I'm sure Sam would blow Fields out of the water. But at the end of the day, you can't do that. Full season, Fields is actually graded out higher. Now, he's also missed a bunch of time. And he has that exceptional game against the Commanders. So these things are on some level related. But give me the Lions this weekend. Chargers and Packers in Green Bay. I don't know what to make of Green Bay. I actually do feel like I know what to make of the Chargers. I know they're 4-5, but they play pretty much the same level every single week, which is like a 7.5 out of 10 NFL football team. They've faced a bunch of teams that are better than that. They've lost to them all in close games. They've beaten the tar out of teams that are way worse. I think Green Bay is like a 6 out of 10 team. I know it's at Lambeau, but give me L.A.
Yeah. I just can't find myself, to pick the Packers. Early in the season, those comeback wins that they had, I definitely thought they were brewing something out there, but I just don't like, where their offense is necessarily. But the Chargers also just a hard team to pick as well because they go as Keenan Allen sort of kind of goes. And he's dealing with an AC joint sprain right now. So
not ideal. Not ideal.
They said he'll play. I think I'm going to go with the Chargers, though. I can't find myself to pick the Packers.
So
I just can't.
Did you, by the way, speaking of Keenan Allen, see the what's it called? The Twitter reel that the Chargers put out the other day?
No, I have not.
They literally go, bleep it, here's all 20,000 or whatever it is, not 20,000, however many, 12,000 yards of Keenan Allen's career.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a 2-hour cut-up of every catch Keenan Allen's ever had.
2 hours is insane.
It was 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Dedicated to, to this montage. I mean, I guess, give it a couple of days.
Also, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of their computers, man. I tried to export a 20-minute video for YouTube, and I'm stuck for 30 minutes not being able to use my computer. They exported a 2-hour, 15-minute video and uploaded that thing to Twitter.
Yeah, that's insane.
Processing power must be nice. So we're both on LA is the short version of that. Raiders and Dolphins. 5-5 Raiders playing a lot better since Josh McDaniels is gone. Why? Because they hated him and he's not a good coach. The Dolphins, meanwhile, have generally played pretty well except for against the very best opponents. I don't put the Raiders in that category at all. That is probably why Miami is favored by 13 in this game. I think this could be a rude awakening for Antonio Pierce and company.
13-point favorites is insane.
That's a big number.
I mean, but you look at the Raiders' defense, I don't know if they have a lot to, go up against Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and, everybody else that's on that track team over there. And are the Dolphins getting Achane back this week?
That is a good question. Let me
oh my gosh.
clickety-click and find out. Injuries. Achane is listed as questionable, so he hasn't officially been activated off IR, I don't think yet, but that can happen. You open the 21-day practice window, yada, yada. But if he's listed as questionable, you've got to think he's good to go.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Dolphins here. I do like what the Raiders have done the last couple of weeks, but I just think too much firepower on the offensive side of the ball, and then also their defense is no slouch. Jalen's going to be locked up against Devontae, so that should be good.
Should be an entertaining one. If I wasn't, at FedEx Field, I'd probably be watching it closer. Giants and Commanders, speaking of, we've obviously been previewing this game all show long. However, quick thought is that Tommy DeVito is playing quarterback for the Giants, so give me the Commanders.
Yep, and I've seen Tommy DeVito play at Syracuse, and I think I'm going to go with the Commanders based off those performances in them.
Who are the guys that were NFL guys for you at Cuse? Obviously Zaire, who's like your best friend and is currently leading the NFL in tackles, so that's a one for the good. Who are the guys that you saw, and did you ever go like, oh, yeah, that's an NFL player?
So Andre Sisco, he was a ball hawk. He was leading like the nation in interceptions.
Yeah, he's been a solid player.
Yeah. Who else?
Zaire and then Tommy DeVito.
Oh no. And they had a corner that plays with the Dolphins now. He's a safety, Iffy.
Okay.
I don't want to mess up his last name.
But when watching Tommy DeVito, did you ever go NFL quarterback?
No, I mean, I would have thought Dungy, the guy that preceded him.
Yeah, no, I never thought he was going to be an NFL quarterback.
But Dungy was just so
like
much
better college player.
Yeah,
but
definitely better college player.
Not good NFL quarterback.
Yeah,
I had Ryan Nassib when I was at Cuse, and he wound up ironically with the Giants for a hot second. And you're just like, that dude's not an NFL quarterback. What are we doing here? Also, ironically, Nathaniel Hackett was the offensive coordinator, and I never once thought he was an NFL offensive coordinator. And here he is about to get fired again from being an NFL offensive coordinator if it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers. Moving on, Cowboys and Panthers. 1, 2, 3.
How about them Cowboys?
I don't think you need to do all that. You literally just got booed here at District E.
Oh, really?
You just make the pick and move on. Don't expose me to people potentially throwing their empty cups at me. Why would you do that, Anthony?
I apologize, Craig.
Good gracious.
Please
just make the pick, be right, and move on. How about – you're not even you're fired. Titans and Jaguars. This one much, much more fun to talk about, but that's only because the Panthers are good, and we're relatively speaking. This one actually is not that fun either. I promise there are good games on the schedule. We'll get there. Titans and Jags, though, I think it's just interesting because, like, the Jags offense has struggled so much that, you know, if Tennessee can play a little ball control, Levis can hit a couple of plays, like, this thing actually could get interesting.
I'm not too high on Levis. I was, you know, after the Falcons game, but last 2 games he's played all right. I think he needs just a little bit more time to.
Of course, he needs more time. He's started like 3 games and he's not that good. He's got super talent. Like the kid's got a great arm. He's got some moxie to him, and that stuff's all great. But when you put mayonnaise in your coffee, I do sincerely have questions about your decision making.
I don't think this one's going to be close. I think the Jaguars defense, they're going to come to play. Trevor Lawrence is going to feed off that energy. I think the Jaguars.
I think it'll be ugly. I think the Titans could cover, but I think the Jags will win the game, which is how we pick it. It's 7.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, I make the joke about Levis and the mayo and the coffee and food. It is crazy from a decision-making standpoint that Patrick Mahomes is like the best quarterback in the league, certainly maybe the best ever. He's a well-done steak with ketchup guy. So I do have maybe food decision-making and quarterbacking don't have anything to do with each other.
Yeah, that is a bad combination.
It's a bad situation.
Well, which one would you prefer? Mayonnaise in your coffee or ketchup on your steak?
Ketchup on the steak, I think.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I've never tried the mayo and coffee, but I really don't want to.
I don't think you want to either.
No, ketchup on. I mean, yeah. But then again, if your steaks are well done, they probably need the ketchup because you've ruined the steak. Yeah. That's a different discussion. All right, Cardinals and Texans. Texans are in the playoffs right now.
Yes, they are.
The Cardinals, by the way, are going to be a pain in the butt to play the rest of the season because Kyler Murray is back. They play really hard, and they are, like, schematically are actually decently solid. Like Jonathan Gannon, as goofy as his press conferences and stuff looked at the beginning of the year, might actually know what he's doing. Who would have thought? Mm-hmm. And this feels like it could be a letdown game for Houston. I don't have the gall to go there. I'm going to take the Texans. I think Stroud is like, he's an adult, and that's part of the reason why he's been so successful. Like, obviously, people have gotten to know his story a little bit more, everything going on with his dad. But, like, this is a real deep human being, and that kind of maturity matters to me at the quarterback position. Now, I'm going to say matters to me. It matters, period, at the quarterback position. It's something that I think Sam, for very different reasons, has as well as a young player, the maturity to go out and be consistent week over week over week. And I think the Texans are straight up a better team than the Cardinals. But considering how big that win was, the drama of it for Houston last weekend, I certainly could see a letdown game here with a Cardinals team primed to be a thorn in folks' side the rest of the season.
You think it's going to be a letdown? I think it's going to be a shootout, Craig. I think there's going to be a lot of points put up. I really like what Kyler's done so far. CJ obviously has been playing phenomenal as of late. I think this one goes down to the wire, to be honest, and I think the Texans are going to be able to pull it out. CJ Stroud.
That's been their thing, pulling games out at the wire. Houston by 6 is the line, by the way. Buccaneers and 49ers. I don't quite think – we don't want to be so disrespectful to the Buccaneers to 1-2-3 it, but they are 12-point dogs in San Francisco. Like, if Tampa's going to keep this thing close, they're going to need a couple of Mike Evans is going to need to have 150 yards receiving in this game. And I don't think that's going to happen against a very good very good San Francisco defense, good San Francisco secondary. And then on the other side of it, you've obviously got full-strength 49ers offense. And when when Debo and McCaffrey and everybody's healthy, they're good for 30 a game. And Tampa does not have the kind of resistance to not make that happen.
Yeah, I was just about to say, man, the 49ers are back healthy. I don't know if there's going to be a team that's going to slow them down. I think this is about to be – it's going to get ugly. I like the number. You said it's at 12, right?
It's at 12.
I love it.
Would you say San Francisco covers the 12?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I think it's going to get ugly.
That's like 30 to 18, 30 to 17 to cover.
Yeah,
I can see that.
I don't think the Bucs are scoring that many points.
Yeah, no, I mean that tracks. Jets and Bills. How about this? Bills are 7-point favorites at home over the Jets. I do feel like they could certainly bounce back. I do feel like this is a Buffalo team that is flawed. They're not prime contenders. They're not what they've been the last couple of years. I don't think the era is over. Like Josh Allen still in his late 20s. Like he's still great. And I think that he can figure out some of the issues. / he will get hot for a stretch that will work out for them. And they'll be dangerous for years to come. But I think defensively with how banged up they are, like this is a Bills team that is not what they used to be. That said, the Jets offense is heinous, bro. Like it is like they should put some kind of warning on it before they take the field on television. Like the Jets offense is god awful, which means a Bills defense that is banged up and not nearly as good as it used to be isn't going to be nearly as phased. Give me Buffalo in the game.
Yeah. The Jets offense it's putrid. Everyone's sick of it. Garrett, he spoke out last week talking about.
I think Robert Saleh's sick of it. Like that's the funniest part.
Yeah, but he's the one in charge. You can make a QB change. You can. You have that power. And guess what?
Does he? Like that's the crazy thing. It feels like Aaron Rodgers runs the team, and Aaron Rodgers took a liking to Zach Wilson, and so it's like they just don't want to make Aaron Rodgers mad. And for some reason, it feels like if they bench Zach Wilson, then Aaron Rodgers will be mad, and that's the worst thing that can happen to them, which is so dumb for a 40-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles.
Was Aaron Rodgers also calling the plays? Because the plays haven't been easy for Zach Wilson to, go out there and actually produce. Like,
no, but you want to know who's calling the plays? Aaron Rodgers got. If Rodgers wasn't a threat to come back, there's 0% chance Nate Hackett still is employed.
Yeah.
Like, let's say what it is.
Yeah.
All right, continuing on as we go around the NFL here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. I'm live at District E. Anthony, of course, back in our D.C. studios. Seahawks and Rams. Seahawks just 1-point favorites at L.A., and we obviously saw them last week against Washington. The Rams, I don't know why this would get. Is Stafford back?
He's supposed to be coming back.
I don't know. Is the final injury report out? They practiced on West Coast time, so let's see if that is actually out. I do not see it. Stafford doesn't have an injury designation. So, yeah, Stafford's back. That would explain why. If that's the case, bro, I could see the upset here. I haven't picked any upsets yet. Is this the one?
We've actually picked every game the same.
We have. You know what? I just don't trust the Rams. I don't trust Stafford to stay healthy through the game. I'm taking Seattle.
You're taking Seattle, and guess what, Craig? I'm taking the Rams. I can't. The Seahawks is kind of like the Jags to me. Like I'm not all the way bought in on those guys. Yes, I've liked what they've done in the past, but like this season, they're just too up and down. And the Rams getting Matthew Stafford back, they got to put together some wins if they want to make a little run. So I think it starts with a divisional foe and the Seahawks. Let's go Matthew Stafford. Turn it up, man.
Vikings and Broncos Sunday Night Football, which suddenly is an interesting game. Denver's actually 2.5-point favorites. The Broncos have climbed themselves out of the NFL's basement. They're actually chasing the Vikings out of there. Denver now 4-5 on the year. Russell's kind of playing good ball. He's got 18 touchdowns to 4 picks on the year.
Yeah.
Like, that's a crazy number.
Let Russ cook. That's what they say.
Well, that's the thing is, like, they've like let Russ cook HelloFresh. It's like, hey, man, here's the recipe. Here's the ingredients. Please do not freelance. You can cook, but please follow the instructions.
But be honest, Craig, if their defense wasn't as bad as they were to start the season, they'd be in a better position than where they are. Russ has actually played solid enough to, win them some games. The defense has definitely let them down. And guess what? I think their defense lets them down again this week. I'm going with the Vikings.
Yeah, I just still don't trust Denver. And I love what they're doing in Minnesota. I know I was still a little cautious earlier in the week about elevating Minnesota too high on our tier rankings. But it does feel like this defense is playing a lot better. I mean, also earlier in the year, their biggest bugaboo, it wasn't like the schematics were all of a sudden bad and teams had figured out Kevin's offense. They couldn't stop turning the football over. Like, Kirk's numbers were solid, but it was literally the fumble numbers. It wasn't even interceptions. It was purely their ball carriers could not stop fumbling. And they finally chilled out on that. JJ's back next week. I'll take Minnesota. I don't trust Denver in the big spot.
Okay.
And that leads us to the family
football
reunion.
Yes, sir.
As the Kelsey boys are calling it. It's also a rematch of last year's Super Bowl. Eagles, Chiefs in Kansas City. KC favored by 2.5. Both teams coming off a bye, which scares the living daylights out of me. Andy Reid is notoriously phenomenal coming off the bye, and I just got to think that they are going to have found some kind of way to kick this offense into another gear. They have really struggled offensively despite their record. Their defense has been awesome. Eagles obviously coming off the bye as well. I don't know, man. I'm pretty torn up on this game. I think I'm going to pick Kansas City at home. And I don't really have a good reason for it other than the Eagles, like when they felt kind of vulnerable against some teams that match up all right with them. They want revenge. I don't know. I'm talking myself in circles. Chiefs for no good reason.
You're going with the Chiefs. I haven't made my mind up either, Craig. And I think
I'm going to say this: Chiefs, and I reserve the right to change my mind on Monday.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely revisit the game.
But we need to get a pick down just in case we forget.
All right, I'm going to go with the Eagles then, You're going with the Chiefs. I'm going with the Eagles.
All right.
No good reason.
So those are our picks. We are picking the games all season long. Our records so far, Anthony, do you have the records actually handy?
I do indeed, man. You now have an 11-game advantage over yours truly. You sit at 92-56. I am 81-67.
All right, so that's how we're doing. We'll revisit all the games with thoughts on them and how we did on the picks on Monday. Same time, same place, 5:30 here on the team at 980. Of course, Anthony will not be there next week, so we'll get Vic Ferreira's thoughts on the games, which are always interesting. You never know what Vic's going to notice, Anthony. That man lives on his own planet. So I'm excited. I'm excited to have Vic in as a change-up next week before we resume normal activities the following week. So with that said, Anthony and I do have a pick 6 to get to. This is the final set of picks we make on a Friday. Who are the 6 players who will have the biggest impact on Commanders and Giants from the Washington side of it on Sunday? We'll tell you next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app on a Football Friday, driven by your local Honda dealer. Make sure you go visit them to experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. It's the Hoffman Show, final hour here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. That man you just heard in the intro, Damon Amendolara, joined us earlier in the show with some great insight on Bill Belichick as the rumors swirl and fly about potential interest in him to D.C. Definitely something worth a rewind or a watch on YouTube or listen on the podcast. However it is that you want to get it. It was 4:30 today. It is up on my YouTube page as well, at Craig Hoffman, if you want to check that out. Now, though, time at 6 o'clock for our Pick 6, where we get the 6 commanders we think will have the biggest impact on Sunday's game.
The 6 biggest commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their #1 fan.
Anthony, you want to know what I just realized?
What?
If the whole staff gets blown out, we're going to have to remake that imager.
Ooh, you're right.
What a shame that would be.
Yeah, that would.
Hang on, EB. Call a good one this weekend, and the next weekend, and the next weekend, and stick around for a while, why don't you? All right, much more importantly for this weekend, let's get our 6 most important commanders for the game. You got first pick this week, or do I?
You have first pick.
All right, well, let's do this. Tyler Larson is number 1. You want to hit the big fancy number 1? Maybe. Big fancy number 1. And
Number 1.
Yeah. So you may remember the last 2 times these 2 teams met that it was the last game that Nick Gates started. Why? Because they had trouble identifying protections. Nick Gates was getting absolutely destroyed by Dexter Lawrence. And all in all, it led to a very bad, no good day for Sam Howell and the Commanders' offense. Meanwhile, on this side of things, Tyler Larson has played better than Nick Gates. They've cut sacks way down. They're better at identifying protections. And I will say something that I think is interesting that Ron Rivera mentioned in the press conference today is that Howell actually is taking a bigger role, and sometimes just within games, of being like, you know what, I got this. I'm going to ID the mic. I'm going to set the protection. I'm going to ID the will. I'm going to slide the line. And he said that, like, Sam's doing a good job in the second half against Seattle. Part of the reason they played better was he was more involved in that stuff. But even if Sam is taking on that bigger role, Larson has to do the blocking. And the blocking of Dexter Lawrence as a true nose tackle, one-on-one as a center, is about as hard of a day as you will get in the NFL. So Tyler Larson is the number 1 guy for me in our pick 6 today.
Number 2.
Number 2, and Craig, I know you probably hate when I do this. I'm going with Eric Bieniemy. I think he got...
It's funny because I hate when you do it, and Logan absolutely loves it.
Really?
Yeah, he's like, oh, the coordinator. I always love to be able to talk about it. So, yeah, when we go through this on Sunday on the Take Command pregame show, Logan's going to give you a big virtual high five.
I say Eric Bieniemy, though, because last outing against the Giants, Wink Martindale completely outcoached him.
Doesn't mean you're wrong, though. That is for sure.
Yeah. We weren't efficient on third downs. You know, Sam got sacked again 6 times. And it was just the offense didn't look fluid. So I think EB is due for another, great game. The last 3 weeks or so, he's called a phenomenal game plan. And I think against Wink Martindale, this is a chance for him to sort of kind of redeem himself.
Last week was okay.
Great might have been a little.
Yeah, he's been better. And they did get back to some of the more of the quick game stuff in the second half. They ran the ball obviously very effectively in the second half for those 4 straight carries they had, and they kept the defense guessing. I would like to see them do that more. They have got to find a way to change the schematics of what teams are trying to do to them, and trying to make a team uncomfortable this week. The Giants just want to blitz the heck out of you, and that's easy to do when you're in the game. But if you can knock them out and get them out of that with game flow, with scoring early, with being aggressive, that's big. And the other thing that I'll say about the Martindale Bieniemy matchup is this. EB last time failed to make that aggression of Wink Martindale a weakness for the Giants. How do you weaponize their extreme aggression against them? Can you hit a big screen? Can you take advantage of a cover 0 and get a slot fade to a Jahan Dotson, a Curtis Samuel? line up Terry there or just use your one-on-ones on the outside. Like, how do you make them suffer for doing something that no one else is taking risks that no one else is willing to in the entire league? And that's on EB more than it is on anybody else. So that's something that I think is I'm glad we got to call attention to it.
Yep.
And that's a good pick, even if I hate that you do that.
Number 3.
I'm going to stay on the offensive side, and I'm going to go with Jahan Dotson as my second guy in our pick 6 on this Football Friday, driven by your local Honda dealer. Experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. Jahan was not good last week. Like, he was incredibly unproductive. 2 targets, 0 catches. Obviously, you can't get any less productive than that. I guess you could commit a bunch of penalties and hurt the team. But, yeah, it was really bad. And he's too good for this. And he should have a phenomenal matchup. Adoree Jackson is out for New York. So Banks, the rookie corner, is going to draw Terry. And then they play a ton of man. So you're talking about a third corner, someone who typically plays inside or someone who's not very good on the outside, playing against Jahan Dotson. Like, he should have a day. So I would like to see EB, going back to your guy, like, get Jahan involved early, and then can you get some of these bigger plays down the field? I mentioned this stat a couple times this week. The longest play to a receiver this year for the Washington Commanders is 37 yards. They've got like 4 guys that run 4.3, 5 if you count, and 6 if you count the running backs. Like, what are we doing? How do you not have a 50-yarder? How do you not have a 65, 70-yard touchdown? Jahan Dotson, go be the guy that gets it. Get a big one over the top. Get a big, deep, high cross, and then break a tackle and run for a score. Jahan Dotson, number 3 for me.
Number 4.
Number 4, Craig, I know for a fact this was going to surprise you, but I'm going to go Quan Martin. And
I don't hate it at all.
Part of the reason I say Quan Martin is because I think this matchup allows us to utilize some of our blitz packages, and they love to, utilize Quan Martin in that aspect. So the defensive line, the last 2 weeks, we've struggled to get to the quarterback. We've had 1 sack and 6 total QB hits. So I'm expecting us to, be able to dial up the blitz against Tommy DeVito. And I think Quan Martin, he's going to have a chance to, go in there and get himself a sack.
No, I think as a blitzer, and also, like, he's playing a lot more in the post. So, if you're going to have Martin and, Percy Butler, like, can you please not give up the big one? And that's been obviously the biggest issue for them. And that's the only way the Giants can win this game. The only way the Giants win is if they hit like 3 or 4 big plays. They are not good enough to sustain drives. The other way would obviously be they get like a pick 6 or a fumble recovery or something like that. But, yeah, I mean, they've got to figure out how to put, the term that Ron and Jack, and is like a pretty common football term, you got to put a cap on the big plays. As the safety, you're the cap. Don't let the whole bottle spill. So Quan Martin obviously has a role to play. And that, even if Percy Butler's been the guy who's been guilty of being a leaky cap the last couple of weeks.
Number 5.
Oh, I'm struggling with number 5. I'm going to go with Benjamin St-Juste. I think that obviously he's had a rough couple of weeks. The matchups have been not good for him. He's a guy that likes to study, that likes to prepare, and last week he was prepared to play inside. He was prepared to play the nickel, and he got summoned to play outside and got stuck on DK Metcalf because Emmanuel Forbes got tossed. And I think that game could have been very different if Forbes isn't the subject of one of the worst ejections we've ever seen in the history of the NFL in terms of its correctness. And so with all of that said, like, I want to see a bounce-back game from BSJ. I want to see him go get a pick. I want to see him make a play. And I think if he can do that, that could do wonders for his confidence the rest of the season. And he should have opportunities against a Giants defense or a Giants offense that's frankly hideous.
Number 6.
Number 6, I was going to go with E4s, but you already threw in a corner. So I think I'm going to shift my focus to Jamin Davis. Last time he went up against the Giants, Saquon, he had a play against them. Darren Waller also had a play against them. So I think this is just a chance, for Jamin to go out there, get his confidence back, to be honest, and just understand, like, you have a lot on your plate, and you just got to, like, live up to it. So I think this is a good opportunity, again, for him to go out there make some plays against a super talented running back in Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, Saquon's banged up. He's not 100%, but he's still Saquon. They don't
correct.
have Waller. Them not having Waller is the reason I didn't pick Jamin, but it's a good pick, and he was right on kind of the tip of my tongue. Forbes, same thing. Like, those are the guys that I was thinking about as well for this last spot. I also kind of want to do a wacky bit and say Cameron Cheeseman because we had bad snaps again, but we'll talk about that. I've mentioned it. Honorable mention, Cameron Cheeseman. Please don't let me talk about you on Monday. All right, that is our pick 6 at 6 here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, Dave Johnson will join us from up there. We are down here at District E at Gallery Place. Dave Johnson joins us from the broadcast booth ahead of Wizards and Knicks next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. It's a Football Friday driven by your local Honda dealer. Experience power, performance, and ruggedness with Honda. See your local Honda dealer. Maryland basketball tonight here on the Team 980 follows us. Actually, a quick BetMGM tonight, and then Knoche and company get going. Johnny Holiday, the pregame at 7:30, which means Knicks and Wizards, which we are celebrating and getting ready for here at District E, broadcasting live, will be over on 106.7 The Fan. But that doesn't mean we don't get to talk to Dave Johnson.
Time to get the radio party started.
Oh, boy, did he stuff him. Left wing pull, it's there. Oh, that's a pool party. Near the basket, slam right in. And they're stealing the slam. Intercepted by Kispert. Kispert now, foul line. Oh, slam. Ooh, that'll jar your preserves.
It's time for Dave Johnson on a Wizards game day.
Kuzma for three. Oh, it's there. It's there. Big shot.
On the Hoffman Show.
Dave joins us from up there in the booth over at Capital One Arena. Dave, how's the weather up top?
I'll tell you what, how's the weather? I'm looking at the patina on the court. Now, again, I fooled your folks, your friends over there, Grand Danny at 106.7 in closing. And now, I had to Google patina as well, but that is one of the color schemes, or part of the colors. There's tinges of patina, which is a greenish film-like color. And the reason that color, which you know what I'm talking about, is the NBA in-season tournament game. We have the City Edition uniforms.
Correct.
Is because that represents the fences that are around the boundary stones. And again, the boundary stones make up the district, and that's what the City Edition uniforms are all about, the boundary stones, which, again, I think makes our uniforms, City Edition uniforms, the most unique and certainly the most historical.
So, Dave, I don't want to put you in a bad spot here, but earlier in the show, because we've got a nice fancy backdrop behind us, and it has the Boundary Stones Wizards logo on it, the City Edition logo. I actually like it better. I know that the red, white, and blue, everyone goes DC, like a lot of the DC teams have versions of it, but when I think like Wizard colors, wizardry, right. I kind of like I've already forgotten the word, the fancy term you use for the teal.
Sure.
But yeah, that. I kind of like this full time. I don't know if you have thoughts. I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing them. But potentially unpopular opinion, I think this should be the new logo.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen. So I can share the opinion. I think they just knocked it out of the park with the logo, with the color scheme. But again, I think the fact, they're not changing. Last I heard, anywhere, that Washington, the nation's capital, and it's red, white, and blue. So now I get it. Well, the Nationals are red, white, and blue, right? Basically?
Well, they're like every team puts a little bit different emphasis on it. Right. I feel like the Nats are they're very red. The Caps are very red. Right. The Wizards have been kind of more blue over the years, but have gone through some red phases. Now that sounds like a Taylor Swift reference. Right. But alas, for instance, you're a big soccer guy, as I am as well. DC United, they're not red, white, and blue. I think the black is very good and distinct, and I love that the Spirit switched up and went from the red, white, and blue to the black, and now they're going in kind of looks like a yellowish direction. They haven't really released anything yet but the teaser of the last game of the season last year. But you're starting to see a little divergence, and I think the Wizards could get on board there.
Well, the very fact that we have patina in our color scheme,
yes,
that's the term alone. It certainly becomes, in my mind, a talking point and rather unique. But I agree with it. They look sharp, and I think I got to look at the rest of the City Edition uniforms to honestly compare. But I just think they look sharp, and I think we've got one of the best. And I know a lot of work went into not only designing them, coming up the right color scheme for what they were representing. And now as I look at the court as well, I like the way it blends in. In other words, it's kind of a grayish court with up against our black jerseys. It really stands out, even on radio.
Even on the radio. That's why they teach you in play-by-play school. You give all the descriptors, and
yes,
that's why you need to know patina. Wizards tonight in their City Edition patina uniforms, and there you'll go. Off the broadcast we'll go. That is my tryout tape, Dave, in case you ever need a last-second replacement, and I happen to be doing a show at District E.
Sounds good. And
excellent.
I know you're right there.
I can do the uniform descriptions. Other than that, that might be a little tough, but I can nail the uniform descriptions. Okay. As for the basketball, obviously this is a season, as we have talked about, where we are searching for positives anywhere we can find them amidst what will be inevitably a fair amount of losing. However, there was a pretty nice little positive the other night, and I think a nice little couple game stretch of positive here from Denny Advia. Plays 24 minutes the other night, scores 15 points. But I think the biggest thing for me, Dave, in looking at it, on top of the fact that he had 4 assists with those 15 points, he's been really efficient, and he's shooting the ball well from 3. What are you seeing from Denny and how he's playing that he's able to produce these results?
Well, you got my job, basically. You're hired. I mean, that was a great description of what Denny Avdia is doing. Look, I like a special player once he came in the league because of his defensive skill. Now, could he? Now, again, that's a strong statement because you don't often come into the league and right away you say, wow, he's good on defense. So, again, we're seeing the benefit advantage. Now, again, it's you can't generalize, but when you get players like Denny Avdia, like Bilal Coulibaly, who have played against older players in professional situations, both did, I think it accelerates their growth and understanding. Even though they're not playing in NBA situations, it's still challenging situations. So now you come here to the NBA. For Denny Avdia, because of his smarts, because of his basketball IQ, oddly enough, the defense might be a little bit quicker for him to really make an impact than at the other end of the court. Something he focused on all season long, all off season, was the three-point shooting. It's something that scouts have said about him, and everyone said about him. When he develops a three-point shot, that's going to open up so much for him because look, he's already aggressive. He's already doesn't fear contact. If you're going to run him off the three-point line, he can drive and he can make a difference. So, again, clearly for me, the 2 storylines for this season that's encouraging so far. And again, we're talking about an 11-game snapshot. So there's going to be other storylines, but right out of the gate, Denny Avdia and Bilal Coulibaly have been the most, to me, consistent and impressive players, not named Kyle Kuzma, for that matter.
Well, now you're doing my job, Dave, because I was going to ask you about Bilal next, and you just led me right there. He spent some time on Luka the other night. How do you think he did in what is probably his most high-profile and challenging defensive minutes so far in his very young NBA career?
I think it was a great education for me. Learned early that Luka is going to know how to draw fouls. He didn't have a signature game, obviously, like Denny Avdia had, quite frankly, against Giannis. If you remember, losing track of seasons now, but it was it was in a November game against the Bucks. The Wizards won at home, and Giannis still got his 25 points or whatever, but the Wizards won
definitely
that game.
Was not the Bucks game that I called with you guys when Giannis had 50. That was that was a different game. That was a whoopsies.
So, but again, it's great to put him in these, situations, and so he certainly, when he was tasked with going against Luka, he held his own. And on the flip side, there were a couple times Luka, I can specifically think of one time that Luka fouled him as he drove around him. So, he's just been not fazed or fearless. I shouldn't say not fazed. I'm sure. All of a sudden you're in the NBA and, wow, it's an eye-opener. But his approach has just been so consistent, and I'm not even looking at, any of the numbers. It's just somebody asked me the other day, he's just been playing well, playing smart, making a difference, letting the game, the old cliche, come to him or that type of thing. When he scored 20 points in Brooklyn, we knew how the Wizards are constructed based on playing time, et cetera. He's not going to suddenly start averaging 20 points a game, but in certain situations, he can do that, and no doubt he'll get more in his career. So this is what fans can expect from this team. That by the way, is getting better. There's a stat that Glenn Consor shared in our pregame that's coming up that this. The Wizards actually, if you look over the last 4 games, are improving defensively. So it really is, you have to do some surgery because the final box score and wins the record of 2-9 is not going to tell the story. What you want to see is the growth and development. What is something that Chris Wright talked in our postgame the other night about, and Wes Unseld Jr. talked about in the postgame the other night. Jordan Poole is still adjusting. I mean, you can look at some of his raw numbers and percentages. They're not far off what he does in general, but he is still getting into the adjustment of suddenly being one of the top players on the opposing team's scouting report, as opposed to what the situation was in Golden State. So, it seemed like there was a story yesterday, I guess, and I'm not disputing anybody's story or journalistic work or whatever, where, I saw something, and maybe it was just a headline on Twitter that, Jordan Poole's not in the Wizards' plans or whatever, and I'm thinking, wait a minute here. I don't think anybody's making a judgment on anybody after 11 games. Does that mean that, Jordan Poole or anybody else is, 4 years from now? I can't predict that when you're just at the beginning of a journey, but not based on anything I've been told, but just based on logic. To me, when you're 11 games into something, I don't think final decisions have been made about anything.
No, that is one thing that Will and Michael have been very clear on. Everything is fluid, Dave. They are just seeing things as they come, trying their best to do the little things right day by day, and they'll live with the results. Some of the quotes and stats you mentioned, Josh Robbins wrote a really good piece in The Athletic that I'd encourage any Wizards fan to check out, kind of on the process and how it's going. It has more of that kind of information. And Dave and Glenn, of course, will be talking about it during the broadcast, which starts in 16 minutes, sir, over on 106.7 The Fan. So we'll let you rest up, get ready for that. I will certainly pop by real quick before I head out of here. So I'll see you in a little bit.
Did you get another spray paint hat or what?
No, there is no spray paint hat station today, Dave. However, if you'd like some tequila, there is plenty of that.
I'm sure. Well, I'll take you up on that another time.
Okay, it could make for an interesting broadcast.
It would, yes.
I'm sure. Are there any official radio party drinking games? I'm sure there's got to be.
Well, there, years ago, I haven't seen one tweeted out, but yes, somebody once tweeted out, you take a shot every time Dave Johnson says it's there or whatever. So, yeah,
puts it in the net.
Yeah, there's some drinking games out there,
okay.
But we will be entirely sober, I think, tonight.
Yeah, hopefully the game won't be sobering. It'll be nice and exciting over on 106.7 The Fan tonight as we've got the Terps here on 980. All right, buddy, I'll see you in a little bit.
All right, my friend, thank you.
All right, that is Dave Johnson with us from upstairs at Capital One Arena. We are downstairs at District E where the block party is wrapping up. Folks starting to head inside for Knicks and Wizards. We will continue our show all the way till 7 tonight. Typically we're off at 6:45 for Wizards pregame, but with us carrying Maryland tonight, that pregame starts at 7:30, meaning we go till 7 here on the Team 980, and we'll get some of our final thoughts in on the Commanders and Giants next. It is the Hoffman Show, Team 980, Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are at District E at Gallery Place here at Capital One Arena. Wizards and Knicks, the NBA's in-season tournament continues tonight. Again, the coverage is over on 106.7 The Fan, starting in about 10 minutes. Anthony, it really is like two different worlds out here, though, because there's stuff happening, right? You probably heard a band performing in the background. They're fantastic. I keep taking my headset off in the breaks, but because of the fact that we have a performance going across, 40 feet from us, I will show the YouTube audience. I have my in-ear monitors in as well that I sometimes use for TV underneath my headset. And then that's able to allow me to kind of focus to the level I need to, hear the things I need to hear, including the sound of my own voice, which is weird because most people hate the sound of their own voice. Let me tell you, if you don't like the sound of your own voice, don't go into radio, kids. There's your PSA for the day. But it's like two different worlds because it blocks out the sound enough that when I take the headset and the earpieces out, I'm like, oh, I'm at a concert. And then I put them back on. I'm like, oh, I'm hosting a sports radio show. So that's what's happening with me and my ADD here at District D.
Hopefully I get the chance to see what you're experiencing because it sounds like you're having a fantastic time.
It's great. We've had
the breaks. You get to interact with a couple of the people walking by, some fans, things of that nature. So
we've had a lot of people actually being like, "Oh, hey Hoffman, I'm so great to see you. I love your show." We've had more people interacting with us today in the breaks. We've had a couple people break the golden rule of saying what's up during the show.
I saw that.
Which is, I'm like, all right, hello. I'm glad that you enjoy the show, but the rule of the remote is treat the host like a zoo animal while he's on the air. Please do not interact with him. He's just there to be watched. It's me. I'm the host. Because ADD is real. I'm clinically diagnosed. And I don't think you need to be a clinician. You just need to watch me for about 5 minutes to know.
I'm already knowing, man. And my how about them Cowboys comment also didn't help either.
Yeah, no, when you did that definitively did. I was like, oh, those are boos, which something that we've never had on the show. And I was like, that is Anthony Haney, everybody. Yep. Anthony Haney.
I take full accountability.
Yeah, you damn right you do. All right, so not Cowboys. We don't talk about them that much here. We just pick them to win the games when they're playing crappy football teams. The Commanders and the Giants this weekend. I actually want to go back to kind of what's at stake and where we were at the start of the show. And I think it's kind of an interesting an interesting conundrum that the Commanders would be in if all of a sudden they do lose this game. And that would be, do you make a move as your head coach or at the head coaching spot if the Commanders lose with a game for whatever days it is later on Thanksgiving? And I think that is a challenging thing for Josh Harris to try to tackle. I don't know that I'd want to do that to Eric Bieniemy. And in some ways, if you're kind of looking for an excuse to make the move, you kind of want them to play poorly but win. And that way you don't feel like you have to do it, and then have Dallas absolutely wreck their souls on Thanksgiving, and then you go, all right, we're going into a long extended break here. Let's make this move and see what EB can do ahead of Miami, which is not going to be a great time either with this not very good defense that the Commanders have, and Miami's offense being what it is. But at the same time, man, I think what Josh Harris really wants is to be able to make it through the season. Just let's get to the end. Let's land the plane there. And I think the pressure would be immense if they drop the ball again and lay another egg on Sunday to not do that, to go ahead and make a move and show that you have some responsiveness, and not that you want to be impulsive, because that's what the last guy was, and we don't want to return to that by any stretch of the imagination. But there's plenty of room between impulsive and reasonably in touch. And I think, unfortunately, if things go sideways on Sunday, you're falling strictly into that very large gray area.
Yeah, I feel like if this season had a theme, to describe it as, or, to center it around, I think poor timing would just be, the perfect thing, because literally every turn, every time we turn around, the decisions that we want to make, you can't necessarily make because of the bad timing. So this Sunday, if we go out there and lose to another bad team, to be honest, I think this would be the worst loss we've had in a while, to be honest. But if we go out here, you can't necessarily fire Ron because, again, of the fast turnaround. And then you look at the season, you look at Ron Rivera's tenure here, him finally finding, a guy that could possibly be our franchise QB. It's just, year 4 is too late, and it's just another poor timing situation for Ron and just the organization as a whole, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's so complicated, though, because, if they lose, obviously the defense is going to have to give up some embarrassing amount of points, which the Giants could be 21, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Unless, I guess there's a situation where, there's a fumble recovery, scoop and score, and a pick six, and then the defense gives up 7 points, and you lose 21-14, and you're like, well, we can't – that wasn't really the defense's fault. Why does the offense have to do that? Or a special teams fumble, or however it is that sets it up. But most likely you'd have an embarrassing amount of points given up by the defense. But, I just don't – Eric Bieniemy's not going to solve the defense's problems. And I don't think anybody on staff is going to either. And at that point, also, what's the point? If you lose this weekend, it is so it's already so mathematically difficult to make the playoffs, but not impossible. Why it feels impossible for the Commanders to make the playoffs is their schedule's a nightmare the rest of the way, especially if Rodgers comes back and is good for the Jets. You're talking Jets, Dolphins, Cowboys twice. It's a nightmare. But the math becomes so freaking hard. And at that point, maybe you make the move because you're I don't know. Is it a complete picture? No, but let's see what EB does as a head coach. Let's see how he acts. Let's see how he conducts himself. Let's see what changes he does make on the defensive side. Let's see how he can handle the OC and Sam Howell development and responsibilities with being the head coach. Maybe you just find out and you go from there. But at the end of the day, it's just so much more ideal, I think, for the things that actually matter long term. I hate to say this, but Bieniemy doesn't necessarily matter long term. He might matter long term, but we know that Sam matters long term, and figuring out how to get the best out of him and seeing if he is the guy and all of that stuff is the most important thing for the rest of the season. And if that's the case, I don't necessarily want Eric Bieniemy splitting his time. And so it just comes down to, do you serve the fans the head on the platter that they want? Or do you say, look, we're going to make changes at the end of – you leak it out, however you want to do it. Changes are coming, but, it doesn't really behoove us to do it right now. Ron will be a professional. We don't have a toxic locker room. And so as embarrassing and bad as it is, we've already lost the season, so who cares? And I would be real tempted to go in that camp. I know it's not the greatest first impression, but you do what you think is actually best, and you learn – or you live with the results. If you're Josh Harris and you go long term, we're going to win the fans back because I'm going to hire the right guy and we'll be good in the future.
Yeah, it was just he was dealt an ugly hand.
Yeah, Harris was dealt a miserable hand.
He's doing the best that he can, and we're getting there's nothing easy that comes of any of these decisions, to be honest.
No, and we don't want to be flippant either. And hopefully they win. What happens if they win this weekend? Nothing. They just keep on trucking towards Dallas.
Run, Craig. I already told you.
Anthony called it.
It's in my script, Craig.
RG3 Part 2.
Yes,
meet Sam Howell, at least for the first year as a starter. Certainly we're hoping better for the long-term results. Okay. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, we wrap up the show with real things real people said into real microphones, plus a look at our weekend preview. It's another Friday that I forgot. Oh, no, this is my fault, Chris. There we go. Sorry about that. Had adjusted some stuff, and now we took the in-ears out, and now I can hear myself. It's another Friday that I forgot Anthony plays this song. That's the summation of what just happened there. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Shout out to the Gem Fatales who just performed, did a great job here at District E. You might hear it's a little bit quieter now as folks have filed out of the block party and are headed into their seats at Capital One Arena for the Wizards and Knicks tonight. So before we get to real things, Anthony, kind of quasi-weekend preview, the biggest thing that is on the agenda for me this weekend is the Formula One race in Las Vegas. Did you see what happened last night in the day one of racing out in Vegas?
I have not.
Okay, so this is the first time, not the first time ever they've been in Vegas, but it's the first time in a long time that Formula One has gone to Las Vegas, and it looks spectacular. They're running this race like very late at night, like 10 p.m. start time on Saturday night into Sunday morning is the ultimate race time, in part because they've shut down the Las Vegas Strip, and it is literally Formula One cars going 220 miles an hour down the Las Vegas Strip. It is wild. It looks spectacular on television. It apparently looks spectacular in person. However, in person, not very many people got to see racing last night. They have 2 practice sessions on Thursday, one, and then qualifying on a Friday, and then the race on Saturday. Typically, that's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday deal, but with the time changes and doing this late at night, they've shifted it, yada, yada, yada. Literally 8 minutes into the first practice, Carlos Sainz from Ferrari, Anthony, hit a manhole cover with the bottom of his car, destroyed the bottom of his car, and they canceled the practice session. They had to move the second practice session back like an hour and a half, and so they are running their second practice, or they ran their second practice at 2:30 in the morning.
That's insane.
They extended it from an hour to a 90-minute session. So from 2:30 to 4 a.m. local time in Las Vegas, you had cars down the Las Vegas Strip at 200 miles an hour. They didn't have any fans in the stands for the practice, which sucks because it was like packed for the first one. But yeah, man, it was crazy. I was watching it back this morning, obviously. But like kind of embarrassing for Formula One that happened. But I'm hoping the rest of the weekend's flawless and it goes off without a hitch.
So you said they're racing down the Strip. Are the roads blocked off?
Yeah. So at 6 o'clock every night or whatever it is, maybe it's like 4 o'clock, they start to shut down some of it. And then by like 6, between like 6 and 8, it's like, all right, everybody off the roads. And then they can like get everything settled. And then at 10 o'clock, they start racing, like the practice. And then like, it sucks because, like, for qualifying purpose or for time, like, viewing purposes, everyone's excited because it's a U.S. race. Because a lot of times these races are on, like, European time or they race in Asia. And, like, to watch it in the U.S. is hard live. It's like, you race in the U.S. Oh, wait, it's at what time? It's actually more convenient to watch this, like, if you're in Australia or in Britain. You wake up and you watch it in the morning because it's, like, or it's, like, afternoon, I guess, over there. Because it's happening at like 4 in the morning East Coast time.
On our time, yeah.
It's crazy. But it kind of works out for them because they literally next weekend they're in Abu Dhabi. Ooh, so like
that's lit.
Just be nocturnal this week and you'll be right on time for Abu Dhabi next week. But I will say, I would highly recommend checking out some of the video of this, even if you're not a big F1 fan. Obviously, a lot of people are now thanks to Drive to Survive. And by the way, I also was thinking about that. I can't wait for the Drive to Survive episode about this race when they tell all the behind the scenes of how all this went down. And by the way, it worked out for Sainz. They fixed his car, and he and Charles Leclerc, the 2 Ferraris, were at the top of FP1 in the practice. Or in FP2 in the practice. So worked out just fine. Their car looks like it's going to be great this weekend.
Are they the favorite?
Max Verstappen and Red Bull is always the favorite.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
It's very annoying. Very annoying. By the way, though, wacky bit part of this, Sainz, even though he hit a manhole cover, that it's like not his fault, because of some of the work they had to do on the car, he gets a penalty because he ran over a pothole.
Wow.
Seems
that
very
is his
unfair.
Fault? Yeah, I was about to say, huh?
Very unfair. I don't like that. But alas, it is what it is. We actually have something from the Vegas Grand Prix in Real Things. So without further ado, at least we're supposed to. Anthony, did you get the
Yes.
All right,
did.
excellent. So let's start there with Real Things Real People Said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
So Formula One is in Las Vegas, which has been a lot of Vegas chicanery in terms of promotion and all that kind of stuff. And that meant on the set of Sky Sports F1 coverage, a visit from the Blue Man Group, which wasn't exactly welcomed by everybody.
Oh my goodness me. Okay, whew, I'm fine. No, I can't. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. We are on air.
It's the Blue Man Group. They're right there.
They're absolutely terrifying.
They're not big talkers, just in case
I'm actually shaking. Who might this not suit?
You apparently. You at the moment, apparently, yeah. Get me too.
Okay, who?
Hi.
So, Mercedes. I'm going to try and hold this together. Mercedes, obviously, straight line speed was an issue.
Yeah.
In Brazil.
Hold it together, Laura.
I'm sweating.
Keep it together.
You okay? Somebody else speak.
This is, yeah. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to F1 Live.
Remind you, Anthony, this is at like 3 or 4 in the morning local time. And they're doing, I think this was after the second practice. This is like 4:30 in the morning local time. And this poor woman, who is an analyst for F1, is overcoming her fear live on international television of people that are in costumes. That's not a fun time.
Yeah, those dudes actually work scary, though. Like
they are pretty creepy up close. Put on an incredible show. Would 1,000% go see them. Was actually bummed we didn't get to see them last time we were in Vegas. We went to a Cirque show. We didn't have enough time to go to multiple. But, yeah, man. How do you feel about people in costumes?
So I used to go to King's Dominion's Fright Fest, and I used to literally run. Now I'm older. I don't really run anymore, but they still can scare me. That is what I would say. I haven't been to, the Field of Screams or any of those, but they scare me a little bit.
I am I'm not like psyched about it. I'm like, oh yeah, mascot. But like people that saw a couple weeks ago when we were here and G Wiz came up, like I was fairly unfazed. I was like, oh hey, what's up? You're just G Wiz having a G Wiz good time. I didn't get like silly strung or anything, so that was cool. My wife is terrified of people in costumes. Hates it. Like what that woman, poor woman, lived on international television is my wife's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're much more that way on the scale.
Yeah, a little bit.
I do enjoy the other guy that's like, hey, they're not big talkers.
That
is true. All right, I'll see you at Tap Sports Bar for Take Command pregame on Sunday, and see you next week on the Hoffman Show. Have a great weekend.